Chapter 922. Billowing steam rose from the blue and white porcelain plate. The rosy demon frog was placed on a plate, and dense steam rose up. The frog meat seemed to be slightly trembling under the surging steam. Soaked in the oil, the bright red, exploding flame pepper looked like it had a burning flame. It was bright red, attracting people's eyes. Waves of spicy aroma rose from the exploding flame pepper. Amidst the spicy aroma, there was a faint aroma of wine. Smelling it, people couldn't help but feel hungry. Bufong looked at the stir-fried demon frog in front of him, his face a little relaxed. Holding his chopsticks, he picked up a piece of demon frog meat and put it in his mouth. Along with the steam, the demon frog meat entered Bufong's mouth. Bufong couldn't help but raise his brows. In his mouth, the smooth texture of the frog meat burst out instantly. It was full of elasticity. When he bit down, he could clearly feel the friction when his teeth cut through the frog meat. The frog meat was very elastic. When it was bitten in half, it bounced hard, gently hitting the wall of his mouth. It brought a different texture. This feeling was indescribable. Bufong chewed. Instantly, besides the texture, the soft and delicious taste of the frog meat also spread. The frog meat was like silk, slipping down his throat and into his stomach. It was like a burning flame. Entering his stomach, the majestic spirit energy burst out instantly. However, to Bufong, this spirit energy was useless, because when Bufong tasted the dishes, he wouldn't absorb the spirit energy from the dishes. It was a little less fun. Bufong only ate a piece of meat, but he was very satisfied with the taste and feeling of the meat. After all, it was a Demon King level ingredient. Just using a little bit of meat to cook, the dishes he cooked were all top-grade delicacies. Stretching his body, Bufong carried the dishes, walking out of the kitchen. Outside, the sky was already bright. To cook a dish, Bufong had been busy for the whole night. Looking at the restaurant that was gradually brightening, Bufong stood at his spot in a daze for a while. Then, he placed the dishes on the table. Thinking about it carefully, the night passed very quickly. When Bufong entered the heaven and earth farmland, it was already pitch black, and the night sky was filled with stars. However, in the heaven and earth farmland, Bufong inspected the rice seedlings and observed many other ingredients. He also picked the ripe, exploding flame peppers and processed them. After doing all this, he also dealt with the mountain-like demon frog's Demon King. Even with Bufong's knife skills, it would take a lot of time to deal with the demon frog's demon master. Hence, it wasn't surprising that the sky was bright. Currently, Bufong's knife skills had reached the limit. He could even perfectly execute the Overlord 13 blades. For Bufong, it was an improvement in his cutting skills, but it also made Bufong confused. After all, he had already mastered the Overlord 13 blades. Was there any room for him to improve his knife skills? Sometimes Bufong would think about this question. However, the result was indisputable. Even if his Overlord 13 blades had reached the limit, it didn't mean that his knife skills had reached the limit. At that time, Bufong thought that the Valley of Gluttony was the limit of his cooking skills. However, he had never thought that there was still the Heaven Chief realm above the Valley of Gluttony. And now, he seemed to have just obtained the qualification to enter the Heaven Chief realm. What did it mean? It meant that the chefs in the Heaven Chief realm had exquisite cooking skills. It was a heaven that belonged to chefs. Hence, the knife skills naturally had stronger existences. Gently exhaling, Bufong closed his eyes to calm himself down. Thinking about the Heaven Chief realm, Bufong felt a little excited. He didn't know if it was because of the wisp of immortal energy that the system had absorbed. When Bufong opened his eyes again, he was dumbfounded. This was because a few figures had suddenly appeared in front of the originally empty space. He was wearing silk pajamas, and his silver hair cascaded. He was crouching in front of the dining table, his bright eyes gazing at the dishes on the table. Beside him was the cold and aloof you. It was unknown when Lord Go had also crouched on the table. His 2 dog paws were placed on the table. Those fellows had smelled the aroma, so they came here. The corners of Bufong's mouth twitched. Is this a dish cooked with demon frog meat? It smells good, but I don't feel anything special about it. Chu Chongsheng looked at the stir-fried demon frog, which was emitting steam and a fragrant aroma. He swallowed his saliva. The dish glowed, which showed that it wasn't ordinary. However, it didn't surprise Chu Chongsheng. Perhaps it was because Owner Boo had eaten too many amazing dishes. There are many ways to cook demon frog meat. I just chose the simplest one. This dish is a test dish. I just want to taste the frog meat, said Bufang. Chu Chongsheng and the others nodded. Then, they all reached out their chopsticks. Hua also came to the table, blinking her big, cute eyes. The tri-flower snake pupils in her eyes were slowly spinning. Anyway, it's really spicy. Chu Chongsheng sucked in a mouthful of saliva and said. He picked up a piece of rosy demon frog meat, and the gravy dripped from it. The originally milky white demon frog meat was cooked until it was a little red. The spicy taste and the aroma were intertwined. A piece of frog meat entered his mouth. Chu Chongsheng's body stiffened, and the light in his eyes became more dazzling. It was a look of shock. This taste, it's really incredible. Boom! Boom! Chu Chongsheng felt as if his body was being attacked by a tremendous force. The demon frog meat seemed to be jumping in his body. Chu Chongsheng couldn't help but cover his face. His face was filled with warmth. Good. Delicious. So spicy. Chu Chongsheng exclaimed. There was a tearing sound. The silk pajamas on his body were instantly torn into pieces that filled the sky. Nethery also slowly picked up a piece of demon frog meat and put it in her mouth. She narrowed her eyes and chewed delicately. Delicious food could make people feel peaceful. You just wanted to eat quietly like that. Lord Go also picked up a piece of meat. The spicy taste made Lord Go grimace. Seeing that everyone was eating with relish, Flowery was also a little anxious. Bufang looked at the little girl, who was anxious but couldn't eat. He couldn't help but pick up a piece of meat for her. Don't rush. Eat slowly, Bufang said casually. Flowery, who had eaten the meat, narrowed his eyes and felt the demon frog meat blossoming in his mouth. So delicious. Bufang picked up an exploding flame pepper, which had thick gravy on it. The gravy dripped, steaming hot. Shoving the exploding flame pepper into his mouth, Bufang closed his eyes and chewed. Because of the stir-frying, the exploding flame pepper had become much softer. As soon as he put it in his mouth, it felt a little mushy. Anyway, it was the food he had grown himself. Eating it, Bufang felt a strange sense of satisfaction. With good food, how could he not have good wine? For the time being, Bufang didn't have the acheron of helplessness. He didn't go to Earth Prison to pick the acheron grass and the flower of helplessness. Thus, it was impossible to brew it again. Anyway, even if he didn't have the acheron of helplessness, Bufang still had many other good wines. His hand shook, and a white jade jar appeared in Bufang's hand. He opened the lid, and thick wine aroma wafted out. Swish! The clear wine was poured. Bufang poured everybody a cup, drinking good wine, eating the stir-fried demon frog. That kind of comfortable feeling really made people feel a bit satisfied. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, Bufang opened the restaurant's door, preparing for the day's business. Outside the restaurant, there was a long line. Bufang looked at the line, exhaling. A busy day began once again. Time was ticking away slowly. The Hidden Dragon continent had fallen into a rare moment of peace. The invading ruin prison's experts stayed in the north of the Valley of Gluttony. They didn't think about invading again. Since the demon frog's demon king was slow and was left in the Valley of Gluttony, many demon kings were vigilant. Even the strongest demon king didn't dare to offend the Valley of Gluttony. What do they have to stir up trouble? Thus, the demon kings didn't stir up trouble, and the other ruin prison's experts stayed in the Hidden Dragon continent. However, as time passed, an indescribable sense of urgency began to spread in the air. The Holy Land's experts in the Valley of Gluttony occasionally looked in the direction of the ruin prison's experts. They couldn't help but feel their hearts palpitate. The void seemed to have black clouds rolling and thunder roaring. Of course, none of this had anything to do with Bufang. Pushing open the light door, Bufang came to the Cloud Mist restaurant. Yang Meiji and Sorceress and Sheng were cooking in full swing. Seeing Owner Boo, the two of them weren't surprised at all. They casually greeted him and continued with their work. After Bu Fong taught them some cooking details, he stepped through the light door, arriving at Fong Fong's little store. In the kitchen of Fong Fong's little store, Xiao Xiaolong was busy stir-frying. The dish was boiling in the black wok. The broth splashed and steam rolled. Next to him, Yu Fu was quietly watching with a gentle smile. Her eyes were full of admiration. All of a sudden, the light door opened and Bu Fong walked out. His vermilion robe slowly fluttered. I was right, wasn't I? With Owner Bu's personality, he will definitely show up. Xiao Xiaolong saw Bu Fong. He put down the black wok, and with a shake of his spoon, the dish in the wok was scooped out and placed on a plate. Bu Fong was a little surprised. He didn't expect Yu Fu to show up here. Wasn't this girl the Serpentine sovereign of the Grand Serpentine City? Owner Bu, you're finally here. Yu Fu looked at Bu Fong. Her serpentine tail gently swayed, and a smile bloomed on her beautiful face. What? Do you need something from me? Bu Fong was puzzled. Yu Fu looked at Bu Fong and nodded seriously. All right, let's talk outside. Xiaolong continued to practice cooking, Bu Fong said, clasping his hands. The kitchen wasn't a place to talk, and Bu Fong didn't like to talk in the kitchen. Thus, he told Xiao Xiaolong to continue cooking while he brought Yu Fu to the restaurant. Oh, it's Owner Bu. Long time no see. Do you still remember me, Old Jean? As soon as they entered the restaurant, the atmosphere was extremely lively. Many diners were waiting for their dishes. The fat Old Jean looked at Bu Fong, and his eyes narrowed into a thin line. After greeting the diners, Bu Fong found a seat, and Yu Fu sat opposite him. Tell me, what made a serpentine sovereign like you come to the Light Wind Empire? Bu Fong asked. Yu Fu took a deep breath, looked at Bu Fong, and said seriously, Owner Bu, a month ago, the oceanic species experts came to the Grand Serpentine City again. Oceanic species experts? What? They want to attack the Grand Serpentine City again? Bu Fong was puzzled. But didn't Ao Bai say that the oceanic species wouldn't attack the Grand Serpentine City again? No. This time, they specifically asked to see you. Chapter 923. After receiving Yu Fu's message, Bu Fong returned to the Taotai restaurant. Pulling a chair, he sat in front of the restaurant. Feeling the comfortable breeze on his face, Bu Fong closed his eyes, taking a nap. After resting for a while, Bu Fong opened his eyes, sinking into his thoughts. Of course, he had to go to the Endless Sea. It was time to go there. After all, when he got a wisp of immortal energy from the Heaven Chief Realm, the system had told him that the gate to the Heaven Chief Realm would open in 3 years. At that time, Bu Fong would have to go to the Heaven Chief Realm. Now, 3 years had passed. Bu Fong thought it was time for him to go to the Endless Sea. Of course, before going there, Bu Fong had something he needed to solve. He needed to find an apprentice chef for the Taodai restaurant. That's right, just one. Compared to the Cloud Mist restaurant and Fong Fong's little store. This time, the system only asked Bu Fong to find one apprentice chef for the Taodai restaurant. If he just needed to find one, it would be easy. However, who should he choose as his apprentice chef? It gave Bu Fong a headache. In the Valley of Gluttony, there were many talented chefs, and Bu Fong could choose them. However, it was hard for Bu Fong to choose one. After thinking for a long time, Bu Fong couldn't think of a suitable candidate. Rubbing his head, Bu Fong turned around and entered the kitchen, starting today's cooking practice. Later, he had to prepare for business. Hades' era came, and the first Valley Master of the Valley of Gluttony also entered the restaurant. The two of them had a good relationship. They often met in Bu Fong's restaurant, and their relationship was really good. The old man rubbed a tuft of white hair on his head. His eyes squinted, and a beam of light appeared in them. 3 years were almost up. Recently, the old man had a sense of urgency in his heart. He had been waiting for the opportunity to enter the Heaven Chief Realm for a long time. He would definitely not let go of this opportunity. Currently, the experts of the ruined prison and the natives of the hidden dragon continent were divided, forming a stalemate. However, because of the Valley of Gluttony, This stalemate had never been broken. The elder knew that once the opportunity of the Heaven Chief realm was exposed, those demon master powerhouses, as well as the strongest demon master, would definitely not let go of that opportunity. Therefore, when the time came, there would definitely be a bitter battle. And the key to all of this was this little chef in front of him. The old man looked at the busy Bufong, then raised his cup and took a sip of wine, exhaling lightly. The old man didn't know that while he was sizing up Bufong, Bufong was also sizing him up. Bufong was having a headache over who would be the next apprentice chef, so he had to consider and choose the people he saw. After staring at the old man for a while, Bufong shook his head regretfully. This old man didn't meet his requirements. It was mainly because he was too old. After placing the dishes by the window, Chu Changsheng skillfully placed them in front of the diners. A figure walked in unhurriedly from outside the door. His shirt was unbuttoned, revealing his fair chest. His unrestrained appearance attracted the attention of many customers. That person wasn't a stranger. He was the chef in the top 10 of the Tablet of Gluttony, Wenren Shang. Wenren Shang wore a warm smile on his face. He looked a little skinny. Although he was a chef with a restaurant in the Valley of Gluttony, he wasn't like the other chefs. Every few days, he would go to Bufong's restaurant and order a dish and a glass of good wine. Of course, it was mainly to drink. Every time he came, he would go back drunk. Wenren Shang had a special love and pursuit for good wine. He also brewed good wine, which was called bamboo tube wine. However, after tasting the wine in Bufong's restaurant, Wenren Shang never brewed bamboo tube wine again. He was a man who could sell his entire family's fortune for a cup of Acheron of helplessness. Bufong's eyes brightened as he looked at Wenren Shang. It seemed that Wenren Shang was a good choice. Wenren Shang's cooking skills were undoubtedly excellent. If he could trick him into becoming an apprentice chef, it would save Bufong a lot of trouble. Sizzle, sizzle. The wok shook and steam rose. After ladling the dishes onto a blue and white porcelain plate, Bufong took a jar of ice heart jade urn wine and walked out of the kitchen with it. Chu Changsheng didn't expect that Bufong would walk out of the kitchen. He looked at Bufong suspiciously. However, Bufong didn't care about him. Instead, he walked directly to Wenren Shang. Your ice heart jade urn wine. Bufong placed a jar of wine in front of Wenren Shang, speaking casually. Wenren Shang glanced at Bufong, then grabbed the jar of ice heart jade urn wine. He opened the lid and started to drink. Looking at Wenren Shang, who was enjoying his wine, Bufong considered his words. He didn't know how to start the conversation. It wasn't easy to make Wenren Shang his apprentice chef. No matter what, Wenren Shang was a chef with exquisite cooking skills. His cooking skills were all-round, but his hobby was to brew wine. When Bufong swept the chefs on the Tablet of Gluttony, Wenren Shang was defeated by Bufong. So, would he still want to be his apprentice chef? Bufong thought that he needed to consider this question. Moreover, he needed to choose his words carefully. Gulp, gulp. Wenren Shang continued to drink. The wine trickled down the corners of his mouth, sliding down his white chest. Wenren Shang couldn't help but exhale a mouthful of white smoke as he drank half a jar of wine in one gulp. The refreshing feeling penetrated his heart. Owner Bu, just say what you want to say. Wenren Shang glanced at Bufong, the corners of his mouth curling into a smile. Oh, he saw through me? If so, Bufong clasped his hands, placing them on the table. Then, he looked at Wenren Shang. The people around were curious. They didn't know what Bufong wanted to do. Wenren Shang's body stiffened under Bufong's gaze. He couldn't even drink his wine to his heart's content. My restaurant needs an apprentice chef. Are you willing to be my apprentice chef? As soon as Bufong opened his mouth, he got straight to the point. He didn't beat around the bush. As soon as he said that, the crowd burst into an uproar. Owner Bu wanted to take Wenren Shang as his apprentice chef? How could it be possible? Wenren Shang was a first-grade chef, and he had the pride of a chef. How could he be someone else's apprentice chef? How could Bufong make such a request? Even if they closed their eyes, they knew that Wenren Shang would refuse him. The old man rubbed the tuft of white hair on his head, smiling with interest. Indeed, Owner Bu had started to arrange things, hadn't he? As time flew, the The time to the opening of the Heaven Chief world was getting closer. Owner Boo was a little anxious. However, choosing Wonrin Shang as his apprentice wasn't the right choice. Of course, Hades Era didn't care about that. He sat aside, holding a spicy strip in his hand, walking in and out. In fact, he was also having a headache. The main reason was that his spicy strips were about to run out. He felt that he had to find a reason to ask Bu Fong for a few spicy strips. Otherwise, he would go crazy if he ran out of food. Wonrin Shang's Adam's apple moved. He lifted his sleeve to wipe his moist mouth. Owner Boo, are you kidding me? Although I, Wonrin Shang, am a little wild and unrestrained, I have my own pride. I admit that your cooking skills are better than mine, but it's impossible for me to become your apprentice chef, Wonrin Shang said. Then he took another sip of wine. To exchange for the Acheron helplessness wine, Wonrin Shang had even pawned his restaurant in the Valley of Gluttony. Today, he was all alone in the world. However, even so, he was still a proud man. If Bu Fong wanted to take him as his apprentice chef, what could Bu Fong teach him? Knife skills, carving skills, and cooking skills. As a first-grade chef, he was good at all of them. What could Bu Fong teach him? However, Bu Fong's serious eyes made him frown. And what Bu Fong said next made his face change dramatically. Is the wine tasty? Bu Fong asked, his face emotionless. Wine, wine, wine. Bu Fong's wine. Wonrin Shang's eyes shrank to the size of a mung bean. Ice Heart Jade Urn Wine, Frost Blaze Path Understanding Brew, and Acheron Helplessness Wine. Do they taste better than the last? Asked Bu Fong. Gulp. Wonrin Shang's body stiffened. When he heard Bu Fong's words, he couldn't help but shiver. Beads of sweat rolled down his face. No matter if it was the Frost Blaze Path Understanding Brew or the Acheron Helplessness Wine, each of them made him deeply intoxicated, especially the Acheron Helplessness Wine. As soon as he opened the jar, the wine aroma filled the entire Valley of Gluttony. What kind of wine was that? Wonrin Shang had tasted the Acheron Helplessness Wine before. It was a wine that could penetrate deep into the soul. It was a wine that people would never forget. Looking at Bu Fong's calm eyes, Wonrin Shang knew he was wrong. Do you want to learn? Be my apprentice chef. I'll teach you. Bu Fong's voice didn't fluctuate in the slightest. Wonrin Shang shivered. Then, under the incredulous gazes of the onlookers, he slowly drank all the wine in his jar. Wiping his mouth, he stood up and solemnly took a step back. He bowed to Bu Fong. If he wanted to learn winemaking techniques, he was willing to be Bu Fong's apprentice chef. I'm willing to be Owner Bu's apprentice chef. I want to learn winemaking techniques from Owner Bu, Wonrin Shang said solemnly. Bu Fong looked at Wonrin Shang with satisfaction, the corners of his mouth rising. The onlookers gawked and dropped their jaws, their faces bewildered. Is it just an illusion? Chef Wonrin Shang agreed to be Owner Bu's apprentice chef. Oh my god, it's another big event after the Demon King's attack. Chef Wonrin Shang has become Owner Bu's apprentice. It's too scary. It's too exciting. I can't believe it. The onlookers couldn't help but exclaim. Everyone was shocked. Owner Bu had accepted an apprentice chef, and he was a first-grade chef. This had completely changed the knowledge of the onlookers. Looking at Wonrin Shang, who bowed to him, Bu Fong's eyes focused because he could feel the other's sincere desire to learn. Winemaking techniques? Bu Fong contemplated. His winemaking techniques weren't easy to learn. Since you're my apprentice chef, follow me. Bu Fong scanned the onlookers, then said to Wonrin Shang. Then, Bu Fong turned around, bringing Wonrin Shang to the kitchen. Also, the restaurant's business will continue. Everyone, please order your dishes. Bu Fong's ethereal voice drifted out of the kitchen as soon as he entered. Wonrin Shang, who was following Bu Fong, felt his heart lifted. It seemed no one had ever entered Owner Bu's kitchen before. Walking through the kitchen's door, Wonrin Shang saw the scene in the kitchen. His pupils constricted more and more. Chapter 924. Is this a F***king kitchen? It was the first time Wonrin Shang had seen Bu Fong's kitchen. Looking at the kitchen equipment and tools that were totally different from what he remembered, he was bewildered. Buzz, standing at the kitchen's entrance, Wenren Shang's eyes were bewildered. The spacious and clean kitchen had shocked him greatly. The sparkling kitchen utensils and cabinets had completely changed his view of the world. Suddenly, a wave of thunderclaps resounded. Wenren Shang was startled. He turned around and saw an iron puppet standing at the kitchen's entrance. A gold mantis shrimp was lying on the puppet's head, spitting bubbles. The puppet's eyes were filled with lightning sparks, and electric arcs were dancing on its body. From time to time, the electric arcs would strike the mantis shrimp lying on the puppet's head, causing it to tremble uncontrollably as it spat bubbles out of its mouth. Lore Bai. Of course, Wenren Shang knew Xiao Bai. He had witnessed Xiao Bai's invincible power, fighting against the ruined prison's experts and resisting the lightning punishment. He respected Xiao Bai from the bottom of his heart. Don't stand at the door. Come in and familiarize yourself with the tools in the kitchen. If you want to learn how to brew wine, you need to be familiar with many tools. Bufang's faint voice arose from the kitchen, interrupting Wenren Shang's train of thought. Wenren Shang hurried to get in. His respect for Xiao Bai couldn't compare to Wenren Shang's interest in this kitchen. This kitchen was totally different from the ones he had seen before. Even the kitchen of the Gluttony Gods building, the most luxurious kitchen in the Valley of Gluttony, didn't have a special charm compared to Onurbu's kitchen. To cook well, of course, he had to learn how to use the tools. Thus, Bufang patiently taught Wenren Shang how to use the kitchen utensils. As Wenren Shang had become Bufang's apprentice, the news had swept the entire Valley of Gluttony in just a blink of an eye. Many people exchanged looks as they couldn't believe it. Why? Wenren Shang was a first-grade chef with the potential to become a special-grade chef, but he had become Onurbu's apprentice. What was an apprentice chef? Only the students of Onurbu were called apprentices. Even if Onurbu's cooking skills were superb, as a first-grade chef, Wenren Shang should have his own pride. How could he become someone else's apprentice so easily? This was a form of humiliation. Many chefs sighed endlessly with regret, and they sighed for Wenren Shang because making such a decision that went against his beliefs might cause Wenren Shang's accomplishments in his lifetime to come to an end. Phoenix Pavilion. Wenren Shang, that stinking brat, actually became Onurbu's apprentice chef. I actually missed such a good opportunity to get close to Onurbu. The employees of the Phoenix Pavilion were speechless as they looked at the regretful Mu Cheng. The latter was wearing a loose robe that covered her voluptuous figure. Her hair was loose, and she didn't have any makeup on her face, but she still looked very charming. However, at this moment, Mu Cheng dropped her jaw, gritting her teeth in regret. Different from the others who felt sorry for Wenren Shang, Mu Cheng felt extremely regretful. If she could, she also wanted to become Onurbu's apprentice chef. If she could become Onurbu's apprentice, she would have more time to interact with Onurbu. Then, something unspeakable would happen. Too bad. Why did she miss such a good chance? When she was tired, she asked the others to leave. Then, she leaned against the window of the Phoenix Pavilion, looking at the brightly lit Taotai restaurant. Her red lips parted as she exhaled. Could this be the arrangement of fate? I'm not convinced. The night was dark and windy. Wenren Shang was walking on a small road in the Gluttony God City, heading to his house. At this moment, his mind was in a state of shock. It was because he had encountered something new. He had never thought that cooking could be done like this, or that he could use so many tools. The convenience of those tools was beyond his imagination. Onurbu is a chef with a creative spirit, Wenren Shang praised inwardly. Wenren Shang sighed in admiration. Then, he turned around and stepped into a dark alley. All of a sudden, Wenren Shang felt his vision darken. A big sack suddenly appeared, falling from the sky and covering his entire body. What's going on? Wenren Shang was bewildered one more time. Under the bright sky, someone dared to use a sack to cover a first-grade chef? Wenren Shang was startled and raged. His cultivation base wasn't weak either. With a roar, he planned to use his true energy to burst the sack. However, boom. As soon as Wenren Shang's true energy rose, a giant force pounded on his body, scattering his true energy. Wenren Shang's eyeballs almost popped out. Boom! Wenren Shang felt as if his face was hit by a rock, and his eyes hurt. Who dares to cause trouble in the Valley of Gluttony? Wenren Shang's true energy revolved, and his divine soul realm cultivation base burst out. However, it was like a stick in his head. Wenren Shang felt like his head got punched again. He didn't want to live anymore. What kind of grudge did that person have to use a sack to cover him and beat him up? People say that you shouldn't hit someone's face. Why did that person hit his face every time? Wenren Shang felt helpless as he was pressed on the ground. Punches and kicks were thrown everywhere. After a long time, Wenren Shang was too lazy to struggle. Every time he was hit, he would just scream. A soft gasp arose. It was a gentle gasp with a hint of a woman's moan. Mu Cheng's eyes widened. Her body was wrapped in black clothes, which vividly displayed her fiery figure. Every time she moved, her towering breasts would shake violently. Looking at Wenren Shang, who was like a dead pig that wasn't afraid of boiling water, Mu Cheng gritted her teeth. Eventually, she stomped her feet and turned to leave. After beating Wenren Shang up, she finally vented some of her anger. When there was no more movement, Wenren Shang flipped and stood up. True energy burst out, tearing the sack into pieces. Who dares to ambush your uncle Wenren Shang? If you have guts, come out. Let's fight one-on-one. There was nothing in the alley except for Wenren Shang's roar, which reverberated in the air. The cold moonlight sprinkled from the sky, shining on Wenren Shang's body, which made him look a little cold. At this moment, Wenren Shang was in a difficult situation. One of his eyes was swollen, with a black mark on it. His nose was red and swollen, with drops of blood trickling down. Wenren Shang, whose face was swollen, felt a little suffocated. Who did he offend? He was beaten up in front of his own house. Mainly, he could feel that the person who beat him had a higher cultivation base than him. Otherwise, he would have gotten rid of the sack a long time ago. Since he couldn't find the enemy, Wenren Shang could only open the door and return to his room. In the distance, on the black-tiled roof, Mu Cheng sat quietly. She took off the mask on her black clothes, sighing. The next day, when Wenren Shang came to the restaurant, everybody had a strange look on their faces. Looking at Wenren Shang's swollen face, they couldn't help but laugh. When Hades Era saw Wenren Shang, he laughed with a spicy strip in his mouth. His laughter seemed to be able to tear the roof off. Wenren Shang was enraged, glaring at Hades Era. It must be that fellow who did it. That fellow was jealous of his beauty, so he put a sack over his head and beat him in the middle of the night. Bu Fong walked out of the kitchen, his face emotionless as he looked at Wenren Shang. He didn't smile, which comforted Wenren Shang. However, when he saw Bu Fong's twitching mouth, Wenren Shang felt like an invisible arrow had pierced his chest. Can't we just play happily? After teaching Wenren Shang how to cook some dishes, Bu Fong had more free time. After all, compared to Xiao Xiaolong and the others, Wenren Shang's foundation was much more solid. He could learn with just one lesson, which saved him a lot of trouble. Clasping his hands, Bu Fong walked around the restaurant. While walking, he was thinking about the trip to the endless sea. Pulling a chair, he sat in front of the restaurant, watching the flowers bloom and wither outside. Heading to the endless sea, Bu Fong squinted. If he wanted to go to the sea, of course, he had to find a boat. If he didn't have a boat, it would be hard to move even an inch in the sea. Of course, with Bu Fong's cultivation base, he could tread on the waves. However, it would make Bu Fong tired, and he wouldn't be able to calm down and cook seafood. It was a serious problem. All of a sudden, Bu Fong, who was lying on the chair, straightened his body. He turned to look at the Path Understanding tree. There, he was holding an ice sour plum juice, enjoying it. Her eyes squinted, and her white face showed a gleam of satisfaction. She sat on the Netherworld ship, swinging her long, white legs. Her long, black hair fanned. Bu Fong looked at you, his eyes brightening. Hades Era, who was sitting next to Bu Fong, couldn't help but widen his nostrils when he saw Bu Fong's appearance. I say, Bu Fong, young man, don't tell me you're thinking about Nethery. I'm telling you, you should give up. You won't have a good ending. Hades Era said seriously with a spicy strip in his mouth. Bu Fong's face stiffened. He turned to look at Hades Era. Looking at him, as if he was an idiot. Then, Bufong stood up and walked toward you. Walking in front of you, Bufong looked at you, who was drinking the ice sour plum juice. He turned around and sat on the deck of the Netherworld ship. Lord Go and Hua, who were lying under the Path Understanding tree, couldn't help but open their eyes. A child and a dog looked at each other with a gossipy gaze. "You, is the ice sour plum juice good?" Bufong asked. Yu was stunned. She coldly turned her head and looked at Bufong. "It's not as good as the dragon blood rice or the braised blood lobster." Yu's words made Bufong pause. Then, which one is better? Braised blood lobster or the dragon blood rice? Yu muttered to herself. While drinking the ice sour plum juice, she pondered seriously. The corner of Bufong's mouth twitched. "You, Owner Bu, I'm going out to sea soon. Can I borrow your Netherworld ship?" Bufong asked. Hades Era, who was drinking a mouthful of wine from afar, instantly spat out all the wine in his mouth when he heard Bufong's words. Bufong, this young man, really knew how to play. He actually borrowed the Netherworld ship from Nethery to go out to sea. Was the Netherworld ship used to sail on the sea? The Netherworld ship sailed on the void of Secret Realm, not the Sea of Stars. As expected, once Bufong's words left his mouth, Yu's gaze instantly became extremely sharp. That sharp gaze made Bufong's hair stand on end. The Netherworld ship enters the void of Secret Realm, not the vast sea, Yu said solemnly. With a gulp, she drank the ice sour plum juice in one gulp. Looking at Yu's solemn expression, Bufong immediately shook his head regretfully. "You can't go to sea? Then forget it. I originally wanted to go to the boundless sea to catch big lobsters to eat. I heard that steamed lobsters are not inferior to the braised blood lobster. Since you don't want to go, I'll go find someone else." Bufong muttered with incomparable regret. Yu's body stiffened, and she immediately spat out the sour plum juice. Wiping away the juice in her mouth, Yu expressionlessly looked at Bufong. The Netherworld ship is omnipotent. It can go up to the sky or into the sea. I promise you. When do we leave? In the distance, Hades Era, who was prepared to watch the show, almost choked to death on his spicy strip. Changed. Little sister Nethery changed. Where are your perseverance, your principles? Little sister Nethery wasn't like this in the past. Chapter 925. Hundreds of miles away from the hidden Dragon Royal Court, there was a towering black mountain surrounded by dense nether energy. The entire mountain was enveloped in dense netherworld energy, and it was filled with a terrifying aura. At the top of the mountain was a palace of white bones. In the hall, the 6 demon lords sat on their seats with gloomy expressions. In the center of the hall, there was a blood-red eyeball floating. The owner of the blood-colored eyeball was none other than the former Demon Eye Lord. It was just that the Demon Eye's Demon Lord was left with only one eyeball, which was rather miserable. "Demon Eye, are we really going to do this?" A Demon Master looked at the floating eyeball and couldn't help but take a deep breath. "There's no other way. With the Valley of Gluttony, we can't attack the south of the Hidden Dragon Continent. However, this world is so big. Besides the vast continent, there's also the boundless sea." A rather steady voice sounded. Black energy swirled around the eyeball, which then transformed into a human silhouette. "Shall we change our target to the endless sea?" A demon master asked in confusion. They knew that there was an endless sea above the hidden dragon continent. However, compared to the hidden dragon continent, the endless sea was immeasurably deep and full of powerful creatures. Moreover, the experts of the ruined prison rarely fought in the sea. They weren't sure if they could still display their true fighting power in the sea. Therefore, if they really invaded, it would be troublesome. If only the Demon Frog Demon King was still here. One of the demon masters was enraged and punched the chair, causing it to shatter. The surrounding demon masters also sighed. Demon Frog's demon master would forever live in their hearts. Attacking the Valley of Gluttony, these demon kings suffered huge losses. Not to mention the Demon Eye's Demon King, whose body was destroyed. Just the fact that the Demon Frog's Demon King couldn't come back was enough to hurt the ruined prison's experts. Since we can't break through the south of the Valley of Gluttony, We can only change our target to the endless sea. Prepare. Tomorrow, we will go to the endless sea. I heard that the endless sea has countless treasures and resources. Perhaps, compared to the continent, the endless sea is more suitable for us. The demon lord said. Tao Tai restaurant these days. Bufang had taught Wenren Shang how to use the kitchen. Wenren Shang was indeed a chef who had the chance to become a special grade chef. He was much more talented than ordinary people. He quickly grasped the cooking methods of the kitchen utensils. At the same time, Bufang was also preparing to enter the endless sea. Entering the sea was not an easy task. After all, the ocean was boundless, and its power was terrifying. If one was not prepared, one could easily be swallowed by the ocean. Of course, there were also countless delicacies in the ocean, so the tools needed to be properly prepared. Fishing rods, fishing nets, and other fishing tools were all thrown into the system dimensional bag. At the same time, he also asked the system for a compendium of creatures in the endless sea, which recorded the information of most of the creatures in the sea. This understanding was necessary, because only with such a detailed understanding could Bufang better judge whether the marine creatures should be fried or steamed. Finally, after all the preparations were completed, several days had passed. On this day, the sky was high and the air was cool, with no clouds and 10,000 miles. In the Tao Tai restaurant, Bufang pulled Xiaopi off Xiao Bai's head, placing it on his shoulder. Xiao Bai's eyes twinkled. Xiao Bai's evolution was completed. However, after the evolution, Xiao Bai's entire body was flickering with electric arcs. It seemed to be the side effect of eating the lightning punishment. Regarding this, Bufang did not have a better solution. Originally, Bufang wanted to directly use the transportation gate in the kitchen. However, after thinking about it carefully, he realized that you could not enter the kitchen. Hence, Bufang could only settle for the second best option, which was to use the main road to go to the endless sea. Bufang's original intention was to borrow the netherworld ship from you and return it after returning from the endless sea. However, you did not agree. This woman was determined to follow Bufang to the endless sea for the steamed lobster. Of course, Lord Go was too lazy to go with her. Hades' Era, on the other hand, was in a good mood. However, recently, this clown seemed to have some mysterious things to do. Hence, it was a pity that he could not go with Bufang. Thus, on this trip to the endless sea, only Bufang, you, Xiao Bai, and Xiaopi would come. Oh, there was also Hua. After Bufang and you walked out of the Glutton God City, this little girl eagerly followed them. Bufang originally wanted to reject this little girl. However, Hua, this little girl, rolled her tri-flower snake eyes, looking at Bufang. She hugged Yu's thigh, which made you agree to bring Hua along. What else could Bufang say? You stood outside the Glutton God City. Her long black hair cascaded. A moment later, a flow of energy was released, fluttering. Buzz, the netherworld ship instantly enlarged, turning into a huge ship that covered the sky. It soared up into the sky, hovering in the sky. With a leap, Yu's figure landed on the deck. Hua's floral dress fluttered as she floated in the air. A moment later, she sat on the deck. Bufang, on the other hand, walked step by step, neither hurried nor slow. With each step, an invisible staircase appeared in front of him, allowing Bufang to step on the netherworld ship. Bufang, who was wearing the vermilion robe, wore a cold face. His robe fluttered in the wind. Let's go to the endless sea. Standing at the front of the ship, the wind blew his hair. Bufang's eyes sparkled as he said faintly. Behind the netherworld ship, the energy was released, making the ship move forward. Outside the Valley of Gluttony, there were many cities, which were filled with experts from different holy lands. They seemed to sense something. They couldn't help but lift their heads to look at the sky. There, a pitch-black netherworld ship was sailing. The rising sun Saint Sovereign was extremely muscular. He stood on the city wall. Seeing Bufang, he smiled and greeted Bufang. He stuck his tongue out, licking his lips. The Demon King level demon frog meat was really delicious. Until now, he still couldn't forget it. Now, the experts from the Holy Lands were very polite to Bufang. When others were polite to him, Bufong would also nod his head in a friendly manner in response. Then, in everyone's eyes, the netherworld ship moved forward. Shortly, it left the Valley of Gluttony, gradually disappearing into the horizon. At the same time, in the central hidden dragon royal court, on majestic Black Mountain, a warship emitting a cold, metallic light rumbled as it flew out, heading toward the endless sea. On the warship, many experts from the ruined prison were standing. Their terrifying auras emitted from their bodies. Those experts from the ruined prison had solemn eyes. They wore fearsome black armor, and the leader was an expert from the demon frog race. They were good at water, so they were the main force of this army. The ruined prison's experts fighting while was surging. Not being able to conquer the Valley of Gluttony was a big blow to them. However, this time, they changed their target to the vast, endless sea. This made them excited. They could fight again. They could get more resources to strengthen themselves. The Valley of Gluttony was located in the center of the hidden dragon continent. If they didn't use the transportation formation and chose to fly, it would take around 5 to 6 days to reach the coast of the continent. And it was the shortest route. The netherworld ship was really fast. After a series of rumbles, it drew a black line in the sky. 6 days passed. Bufong, who was sitting on the deck, finally moved his eyes, looking at the horizon in the distance. A salty sea breeze blew over, hitting Bufong's face, making Bufong feel cool. In his ears, he could faintly hear the sound of the waves hitting the shore. It seemed they had reached the endless sea. Bufong's eyes shot out light. He stood up from the deck, facing the sea breeze and looking forward. The sky was blue and boundless. White clouds were quietly floating in the sky. In the distance, the sky and the sea were connected. There was a line between the sky and the sea. The scorching sun was high up in the sky, blooming with extreme radiance. The scorching light sprinkled on the sea, making it sparkling. The sea breeze blew, shattering the surface of the sea. It looked like crushed gold was sprinkled on the sea, piling up. The scene down there changed at a speed naked eyes could observe. The netherworld ship was flying fast. Below them was a continuous mountain range. Sometimes, roars of beasts could be heard from the mountain range. As they moved forward, the green color of the mountain range gradually decreased. What replaced it was a gold-like beach. The beach had layers of folds, which were piled up by seawater. Along with the rumbling sound, the netherworld ship floated down from the sky toward the endless sea. You got out of the deck, standing on the deck. She turned her head to look at Bufong. Then, her slender fingers moved as if she was making a seal. The flying netherworld ship began to descend. Rumble. The sand and stones on the ground flew up. The layers of folds on the beach were destroyed. Landing safely on the ground, he was greeted by the salty and fishy sea breeze. Directly in front of him was the boundless sea that stretched as far as the eye could see. The waves were calm, not as turbulent as the rumors said. "This is the endless sea," you said. Bufong nodded. They weren't in a hurry to enter the sea. Instead, they stopped here. Bufong gently leaped, stepping off the deck and landing on the beach. The sand and stones on the ground were soft and a little moist. Stepping on them felt like stepping on a sponge. Bufong's eyes slightly focused as he walked on the beach. "Let's take a break. Tomorrow, we will enter the sea. I will look for some seafood. Tonight, we will taste the delicious seafood." As you and the others sat on the deck, Bufong's faint voice rang in their ears. Eating seafood tonight? But they hadn't entered the sea yet. Where they get seafood? You was a little bewildered. Thinking about it, you also jumped up, following Bufong's footsteps. Of course, Bufong didn't care much about you, who was following them. The coast of the hidden dragon continent was really dangerous, so there weren't many people. Bufong had walked for a long time, but he hadn't seen a single shadow. This was a sharp contrast to the lively beaches in his previous life. Bufong walked slowly with his hands in his hands. It was unknown when she had taken off her shoes, but now she was walking barefooted on the beach. The waves came crashing over, slapping against her feet. The sea breeze blew, causing her pitch-black dress to flutter. Her hair fluttered in the wind, and it was a beautiful sight to behold. Bufong, do you want to enter the sea now? Otherwise, how can we eat seafood tonight? You asked. Bufong glanced at you. Who says that we have to enter the sea to eat seafood? There are also delicious food on the beach. Is Bufong blind? The ground is covered with sand. Where did the seafood come from? Nethery was taken aback. You don't believe me? Bufong glanced at you, the corners of his mouth rising. Then, he took out a bottle from the system dimensional bag. That bottle was filled with crystal salt, the seasoning that Bufong usually used in cooking. Reaching out, he grabbed a handful of crystal salt and sprinkled it on the beach in front of you. And then, you looked at Bufong, her face expressionless. And then, the seafood came out, Bufong said. You rolled her eyes. Bufong must be a fool. All of a sudden, Yu's eyes shrank. She lowered her head to look at the beach. She saw that the beach under her feet was shaking. The sand on the place where the crystal salt was sprinkled was overturned. It seemed like a giant creature was about to come out. Chapter 9:26. Sizzle, 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 sizzle. Nethery's pupils constricted slightly. She was a little surprised. Bufong's feet stepped on the ground. His body took a step back. The corners of his mouth rose as he looked at the place where the crystal salt was sprinkled. All of a sudden, a water arrow shot out from the ground. You frowned. Her body seemed to teleport, reappearing far away. The beach exploded, and a creature half the size of a human got out of it. What's that? You dare to scare me? Yu's face was cold. She indifferently glanced at the creature that got out of the beach. She said coldly, raising one hand. Nether energy twirled around her palm. Then nether rush. Boom! Under Bufong's speechless eyes, the dragon purple razor clam, which had just gotten out of the beach, was smashed into pieces by Yu's nether rush. That dragon purple razor clam was just a spirit beast at the supreme being realm. How could it resist Yu's attack? The razor clam's shell exploded, and minced meat scattered on the ground. A piece of clam meat fell by Bufong. Bufong looked at you begrudgingly. He squatted, grabbing that piece of meat and squeezing it. It didn't feel bad. It's not a bad ingredient. Unfortunately, it's smashed. The seafood ingredient you mentioned is this thing? Can it be eaten? At this moment, Nethery came to her senses and realized that she seemed to have done something stupid. Anyway, what could she do? It was just a clam. So what if it was destroyed? Of course, it's edible. It tastes good. Bufong looked at you, but he didn't blame her. Actually, he didn't blame her. Dragon purple razor clams were common on the beach. Bufong clasped his hands behind his back and strode forward slowly. You followed Bufong quietly this time. She looked at Bufong in confusion. She seemed to notice that Bufong's steps were a little strange. Although they were both walking, Bufong had stealthily covered his feet with his mental energy. This allowed him to clearly feel the changes in the energy on the beach with every step he took. The dragon purple razor clam was hidden deep in the beach. If they wanted to get out, they couldn't just sprinkle salt on the ground. He had to find their ventilation holes and sprinkle salt there. Naturally, he would be able to lure them out. It's here. Bufong stepped on the sand, which was much softer than the surrounding, and sprinkled a handful of crystal salt on it. The white salt was sprinkled on the golden beach, making it look even more dazzling and eye-catching. You gazed at the ground. Shortly after, her eyes shrank again. The beach, which had nothing before, suddenly boiled. Sand and rocks rolled on both sides. Then, another dragon purple razor clam crawled out of the sand. It was a shell-type creature. Its shell glowed with a faint purple hue with many patterns on it. With a closer look, those patterns looked like a dragon's head. It was the dragon purple razor clam that Bufong had mentioned. It was a delicious ingredient. Of course, you didn't think so. It was because she couldn't see where this thing could be eaten. As soon as the dragon purple razor clam appeared, the water arrow shot towards Bufong. Bufong smiled faintly. His mental energy rippled. Then, the dragon purple razor clam couldn't move anymore. The water arrow shattered. Bufong patted the razor clam's shell. He gently grabbed the razor clam, walking towards the sea. The sea waves came. Bufong's feet stepped on the surface of the sea, coming to a place where the water was quite deep. He washed the razor clam, cleaning all the sand and sand inside. Bufong held the razor clam with one hand. His other hand swung, throwing the jar of crystal salt to you, who was watching from a distance. This crystal salt is for you. You should bring more razor clams back. I'm going to grill them, Bufong said casually. Then, he continued to tread on the waves, carrying the giant dragon purple razor clam back to the netherworld ship. Xiao Bai and Hua also got off the ship. Letting Xiao Bai clean the dragon purple razor clam, Bufong began to build a grill on the beach. The black turtle constellation Wak appeared, pounding on the beach. Bufong also took out the iron wire mesh left from the grill. He wove them into an iron net, placing it on top of the black turtle constellation Wak. Opening his mouth, he spurted a dark gold flame. It was the heaven and earth obsidian flame, which had an extremely high temperature. Actually, at Bufong's current level, the heaven and earth obsidian flame couldn't satisfy his daily needs. This dark gold heaven and earth obsidian flame couldn't cook many ingredients. Although the temperature of the rare heaven and earth flame was high, it was a little strenuous to cook Demon King grade ingredients. If it weren't for Bufong's mental force, it would be really hard to cook Demon King grade ingredients. If he encountered stronger ingredients in the future, Bufong understood that the power of the heaven and earth obsidian flame wouldn't be enough. Could it be that there was a higher grade flame above the heaven and earth obsidian flame? Bufong thought, but he didn't think too much. Even if he thought too much, it wouldn't work. As soon as the fire was done, the iron net's temperature rose. Hua sat cross-legged on the beach, curiously looking at the flame burning in the black turtle constellation Wak. In her triflower snake eyes, the flame danced unceasingly, reflecting in her pupils. Sizzle, sizzle. Bufong received the dragon purple razor clam from Xiao Bai, placing it on the grill. The heaven and earth obsidian flame burst out, shaking the dragon purple razor clam. Seizing this chance, Bufong took out the ingredients he had prepared in the system's dimensional bag. Holding the purple garlic in his hand, the dragon bone kitchen knife spun in his hand, mincing the garlic. Then he added some oil and wine, turning them into seasonings. Sizzle, sizzle. The dragon purple razor clam was grilled, and its juice dripped unceasingly. When the juice fell on the flame, it evaporated instantly, turning into white steam that rose. The color of the dragon purple razor clam's meat changed at a speed naked eyes could observe. A meaty aroma slowly arose. Patter. The dragon purple razor clam's shell opened, revealing the white and tender clam meat inside. The fat, white and tender razor clam's flesh gradually bulged, revealing a bright and beautiful color. A little bit of oil seeped out from it. At the same time, Bufong brushed the oil on the razor clam's meat. It made the razor clam's meat more radiant. The aroma rose, tickling people's taste buds. Hua looked at the delicious razor clam's meat, and he couldn't help but feel excited. Far from them. You had learned Bufong's method, luring the dragon purple razor clam. However, she didn't know the details, so she didn't dare to add salt. All of a sudden, you squinted. She found a spot, grabbed a handful of salt, and sprinkled it on the razor clam. Then, her slender legs strode away. Her long black hair cascaded, and her pitch-black eyes gazed at the spot where she had sprinkled salt on the razor clam. It had been a long time, but nothing happened. Did I make a mistake? You furrowed her brows. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be a mistake. You held the jar, walking to the spot where she had sprinkled salt. All of a sudden, the beach began to shake. This shaking was so violent that even Bufong and the others, who were grilling in the distance, couldn't help but look skeptically. Boom! The beach exploded. In just a blink of an eye, a giant shadow stormed out of the beach. A water arrow as thick as a water column shot down. Nethery moved sideways, leaving many afterimages as she dodged the attacks of the water columns. Then, you lifted her head to look at the creature in front of her. At first glance, she couldn't help but take in a breath of cold air. What a big, dragon purple razor clam. It was a dragon purple razor clam that was as big as a house. The dragon patterns on its body glowed faintly, as if they were about to burst out a dazzling radiance. From a distance, Bu Fong's eyes shrank when he saw the dragon purple razor clam. That woman's luck is so good. She found a dragon purple razor clam king. The dragon purple razor clam king is an ingredient of the divine physique echelon realm. Its taste is much better, Bu Fong exclaimed. Then, the corners of his mouth twitched. Not good. I have to stop you. Otherwise, that woman will smash the dragon purple razor clam king again. However, Bu Fong's hands were still busy, and he didn't have time to spare. Turning his head to look at Hua, who was innocently looking at the golden, grilled razor clam meat, Bu Fong narrowed his eyes. Hua, sprinkle the seasoning evenly on the razor clam meat, okay? Bu Fong asked. Okay. Hua received the plate of seasoning from Bu Fong, nodding. Bu Fong's mouth curved. This little girl was so obedient. Then, he turned around and ran toward you. He wanted to save the dragon purple razor clam king. You looked at the giant dragon purple razor clam king. The nether energy on her body slowly rose. She raised a hand, and her eyes instantly became incomparably cold. Die, you said casually. Then, her figure shot out at high speed, as if she had turned into a stream of light. However, just as her attack was about to hit the dragon purple razor clam king, a shadow suddenly appeared in front of her, kicking the dragon purple razor clam king away. Boom! Rumble! The dragon purple razor clam king's giant body was kicked away. It rolled for a while, sending sand and stones everywhere. You didn't understand, looking at Bu Fong, who had stopped her. That's the dragon purple razor clam king. It's a delicious ingredient that's not weaker than the blood lobster. We have to be gentle with this ingredient, said Bu Fong. An ingredient that's not weaker than the blood lobster? Yu's eyes brightened. The braised blood lobster's taste popped up in her head. Swallowing her saliva, Yu nodded. Far from them, the dragon purple razor clam king planned to return to the beach. However, Bu Fong had appeared not far from it. You want to leave after showing your head? Bu Fong grabbed the razor clam shell with one hand, slowly dragging the dragon purple razor clam king out of the sand. The dragon purple razor clam king was bewildered. It just came out to make some bubbles. After cleaning the dragon purple razor clam king, Bu Fong cut the dragon purple razor clam king's meat into small pieces, putting them into the system dimensional bag. Then, he brought you to the netherworld ship. According to his estimation, the razor clam's meat should be cooked by now. You also smelled the aroma in the air. She couldn't help but feel hungry. Turns out that thing could be cooked into a delicacy. It seemed anything in Bu Fong's hands would become delicious. So magical. However, when Bu Fong and you approached the netherworld ship, the corners of their mouths twitched, their faces emotionless. Next to the grill, Hua was grabbing the razor clam meat that was even bigger than her, gulping it down. She ate until her mouth was covered in oil and steam. The razor clam's meat was soaked in the purple garlic sauce that Bu Fong had prepared, and it emitted a rich fragrance. Purple garlic was still slowly rolling down the razor clam's meat. Chapter 9:27. Bu Fong didn't expect that Hua would eat the grilled razor clam. This little guy seemed to be a big foodie. The air was still filled with the lingering aroma of the grilled razor clam. The dragon purple razor clam was a top-notch existence among the oceanic species razor clams. It should be said that it was the ultimate delicacy of the clam. Especially after it was grilled, it would taste even more enchanting when it was sprinkled with the sauce that Bu Fong had prepared. Although Hua had eaten the grilled razor clam, Bu Fong, and you didn't blame Hua, the two of them sat around the grill. From the system dimensional bag, Bu Fong took out the dragon purple razor clam king meat that had been cleaned and cut into pieces. He spread the meat evenly on the grill, and the juice dripped into the heaven and earth obsidian flame in the black turtle constellation walk. The sizzling sound echoed unceasingly. One could see with naked eyes that the heaven and earth obsidian flame was burning the juice and evaporating it. The steam hit the razor clam meat on the grill, making the meat shiver. The color of the meat also changed at a speed naked eyes could observe. The razor clam meat was easy to cook. However, since it was the razor clam king, it took a little longer to cook. In the air, a thick aroma diffused. It was the aroma of the razor clam meat after it had turned golden. Bufong took out the oil he had prepared and swept it on the razor clam meat. Instantly, the razor clam meat became a dazzling golden color. Vaguely, a faint radiance shot out. The eyes of Hua and Yu, who were sitting around, brightened. Hua was so happy that he opened his mouth wide. Saliva dripped from his mouth. His triflower snake eyes were moving unceasingly. His joy couldn't be described in words. He flipped the razor clam meat on the grill and continued to steam it. The temperature in front of him had become extremely high, and the air above the grill seemed to be slightly twisted. Looking down from above, one could only see that within the dark golden flames, there seemed to be a hint of fiery red dancing. He took out the purple garlic and scale-tail scallion, cut them into small pieces, and mixed them together. Then he took out the jar of abyssal chili sauce and scooped half a spoonful of chili into a bowl. He mixed the chili sauce, the chopped purple garlic, and the scale-tail scallion together and stirred them. Then he poured in the smooth oil and a few drops of ice-hard jade urn wine. After stirring for a while, Bufong adjusted the new sauce. And at this moment, the razor clam meat on the grill had completely matured. The razor clam's crystal rod was slightly curled up. Taking out a pair of long and narrow chopsticks, Bufong grabbed the chopsticks and easily flicked the razor clam meat on the grill. Then, it fell into the flat porcelain bowl that he had prepared beforehand. With a splashing sound, the razor clam meat splashed with oil fell into the bowl. Bufong smeared some chili sauce on it. A plate of barbecued razor clams was officially completed. Bufong gave the first one to you. You had found this razor clam king, so you deserve the first dish. You didn't have any reaction to this. Her face was still like an ancient well, without a ripple, without joy or sorrow. However, her slightly raised red lips showed the joy in her heart. Receiving the flat porcelain bowl that Bufong handed to her, you looked at the steaming hot razor clam meat smeared with the sauce. She couldn't help but take a deep breath. The aroma of the razor clam meat entered her nose, stimulating her taste buds. It smelled good, very good. After taking a deep breath, Nethery felt that her appetite had been completely stimulated. She grabbed the chopsticks, smoothing the sauce that Bufong had poured on the razor clam, making the sauce evenly cover the golden razor clam meat, covering its radiance. Picking up the razor clam meat, she put the steaming hot meat into her mouth. Pouting her red lips, you blew out a breath of hot air. Then, she opened her mouth, taking a bite. The sauce splashed. A piece of razor clam meat was bitten off, mixing with the sauce as it entered her mouth. The moment she started chewing, Nethery was dumbfounded. The thick taste of the razor clam exploded in her mouth, causing her fair face to reveal an incredulous expression. She chewed faster, and the elastic meat bounced unceasingly in her mouth, pounding against the walls of her oral cavity. She felt as if she was being covered by the smooth razor clam meat, and the feeling of seawater hitting her instantly. The spicy sauce was just right, together with the aroma of the purple garlic and scale-tail scallion. Along with a little bit of wine, it blended with the taste of the razor clam meat, bringing out the best in each other. It was simply delicious. You took a bite. After chewing for a while, she swallowed the razor clam meat. Instantly, her entire body shivered, and she exhaled a mouthful of white gas. Delicious, right? Bufong looked at Yu's face of enjoyment. The corners of his mouth rose, asking faintly. His hands didn't stop working. His chopsticks moved, and a piece of razor clam meat, which was grilled until it was golden yellow, was picked up, falling into a flat porcelain bowl. Pouring a portion of chili, he gave it to the little girl. Although the little girl had secretly eaten the razor clam meat, the taste was still different. However, the taste of the normal razor clam meat and the razor clam king's meat was somewhat different. Moreover, the sauce had to be applied carefully. Thus, the razor clam meat that the little girl had eaten wasn't really perfect. And now it was the perfect one. A mouthful of razor clam meat made Hua gawk. She couldn't help but whimper. Apparently, she regretted that she had been too hasty. Gulp. Hua's neck enlarged. She had swallowed the entire piece of razor clam meat. Seizing the chance when they were eating happily, Bufong also picked up a piece of razor clam meat and ate it. Indeed, the taste was really good. The grilled, golden razor clam meat emitted a thick aroma. That aroma lingered in people's mouths and nostrils, making them sink into it. The night was getting darker. 2 crescent moons hung in the sky, radiating cold radiance. They were reflected on the vast sea. The surroundings were quiet. As long as the sea breeze blew, the waves would rumble. A series of waves came from afar, rapidly approaching. In the end, they smashed onto the beach and shattered. The air was filled with the aroma, which made people's appetite increase. Xiao Hua lay down on the beach happily, rubbing his swollen belly as he exhaled. You didn't exaggerate. However, she was also sitting on the beach, hugging her slender, white legs, looking at the endless sea. Sometimes, when looking at the sea was really beautiful. The sea breeze blew, fluttering his black dress and long, black hair. Bufong was lying on the beach, using his head as a pillow. The black turtle constellation walk was placed next to him, where the heaven and earth obsidian flame was burning. Everything was so quiet. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, the 3 of them felt a little lazy. Xiao Bai had lightning arcs moving on his body. He stood not far from Bufong, his mechanical eyes twinkling unceasingly. At some point, Shrimpy was lying on its round head again. From time to time, it would be struck by the lightning arcs, causing its body to tremble. The sea is really a good place. As the night deepened, a leisurely sigh quietly resounded in the air. Under the pitch-black night sky, the vast sea surged. A cold, metal battleship was sailing on the sea. This big ship easily rode the wind and the waves. On the deck of the battleship, figures wrapped in black robes stood. These people were the demon kings of the ruined prison. Unbelievable. The endless sea is full of vitality. Compared to the dead sea of our ruined prison, this sea is really full of vitality. A demon king sighed emotionally. The surging waves came crashing down, and water splashed everywhere. The demon master raised his hand, and his energy dissipated, instantly enveloping the clear water spray. The water was covered, floating in front of the demon king. He took a deep breath. The fishy and salty smell of the sea water excited the demon lord. Endless sea. This lord seems to smell a lot of delicious things. Rumble. A huge wave came, causing the battleship to shake violently. Although the battleship was swaying left and right, it was still so strong. It still broke through the waves, moving forward. When Bufong opened his eyes, the salty seawater splashed on his face, causing him to quiver involuntarily. In front of him, the sky was already bright. The dazzling sun rose high into the sky, stretching as far as the eye could see. The clear blue sky attracted people's eyes. A night passed just like that. Turning his head to look, Yu was sitting on the deck of the Netherworld ship, swinging her beautiful white legs. Hua was standing on the edge of the sea, giggling as she stepped on the sea water. Rubbing his neck, Bufong stood up. Facing the cool sea breeze, he couldn't help but exhale. It's time to go. After calling the little girl back, everyone returned to the Netherworld ship. The Netherworld ship, which had stopped for a night, moved forward again under Yu's control. Rumble. The Netherworld ship moved forward, breaking through the sea water, slowly moving forward. The sea and sky were one color, but a pitch-black Netherworld ship broke this harmony. On the Netherworld ship, Yu expressionlessly looked at Bufong. Where is our destination? Yu asked. The Black Dragon King's Dragon Palace. That guy invited us there, replied Bufong. Yu crossed her arms in front of her chest, indifferently looking at Bufong. Tell me, which direction is the Black Dragon King's Dragon Palace? Bufong was bewildered, his face bewildered. He walked to the deck of the ship, looking around at the boundless, endless sea. For a moment, the corner of his mouth twitched. He had actually forgotten a serious matter, and that was he didn't know where the Black Dragon King's dragon palace was. Dare he ask where it was? Don't look at me. I don't know either. The Black Dragon King's dragon palace isn't a secret realm. It's not within the Netherworld ship's sensing range, said you. If it was a secret realm, the Netherworld ship could easily break through the void to get there. Bufong was a little speechless. He turned around, walking into the cabin. Not long after, he came out with the gold Xiaopi, walking to the deck. Xiaopi, as the shrimp ancestor, you should know where the Black Dragon Palace of the Endless Sea is, right? Bufong picked up Whitey seriously, looked into its eyes, and said, I'll be fine. However, Shrimpy was still spitting bubbles from its mouth and rolling its eyes. It did not utter a single word of nonsense. After looking at each other for a long time, Bufong felt his eyes were a little sore. Then he put Xiaopi back on Xiaobai's head. Walking to the deck, Bufong looked at you. No other way. I can only go to the sea to catch a big guy to ask about the road and bring some food up. Wait for me to come back. Bufong looked at you, saying. Then Bufong stepped on the railing of the Netherworld ship. With one step, his body shot out like a straight arrow, jumping into the sea. Huo looked at this scene, cheering and jumping. He planned to follow Bufong's footsteps and jump into the sea. However, as soon as he jumped into the air, you pulled him back. Be good and stay here. Don't be naughty, you said calmly. As soon as her voice fell, the Netherworld ship fiercely shook. The sea was surging unceasingly, as if a terrifying beast was stirring the water. Swish! In the distance, the sea water exploded, and a giant fishtail shot up from the place where Bufong had jumped into. Chapter 928. The fish swung its tail, stirring up stormy waves. Bufong's figure had already disappeared into the waves. As soon as he jumped into the sea, the cold seawater spread, covering Bufong's entire body. Bufong found it hard to breathe. This was the pressure of the seawater. Bufong held his breath. Bubbles gushed out of his mouth and nose. The vermilion robe rippled in the water, fluttering in the wind. A pale yellow halo twinkled. Bufong spat out some bubbles. This feeling of falling into the sea was a little uncomfortable. Bufong furrowed his brows. Then his mind flickered, and his spirit sea surged with sky-shaking waves. A sonorous dragon roar resounded. His mental force was released. Under Bufong's careful control, it turned into a thin film, covering Bufong's body. The surrounding seawater was isolated, making the pressure disappear. Bufong opened his mouth and took a deep breath. Then he began to stroll in the sea. Shortly after, he sank to the bottom of the sea. He needed to find a sea spirit beast that knew the way. The Black Dragon Palace was a famous place in the Endless Sea. The stronger sea spirit beast should know about it. His figure fell to the bottom of the sea, stepping on the uneven seabed. Instantly, dust and sand rose, blurring everything in front of him. The scenery under the sea was different from that on land. Bufong widened his eyes, looking at the schools of fish swimming in front of him. He was a little surprised. There were colorful corals, and there were slender snake-type spirit beasts swimming in the coral. There were octopuses swaying their 8 soft legs, floating in the water. Everything was better than anyone had expected. All of a sudden, a violent tremor came from above Bufong's head. The seawater seemed to be boiling. The fishes that were swimming in front of Bufong were startled. Some of them darted out like arrows. Their speed was so fast that they disappeared in an instant. The octopus was also frightened by this movement. It spat out a pitch-black liquid that spread out, causing the surroundings to become pitch black. At the same time, the octopus's figure shot out rapidly. Rumble. The entire seabed seemed to be shaking. Bufong was stunned. He raised his head and looked up. There, a ferocious fish opened its mouth full of sharp teeth and rushed toward Bufong. The fish was huge, slender. It had a streamlined fin on its back. When it swam, it was extremely fast. Tiger head shark? Bufong was surprised. The tiger head shark was a spirit beast at the peak of the divine physique echelon realm. Its head was like a tiger on land, and it had a ferocious king character on its forehead. Its mouth could shoot out sharp water blades. It was an extremely savage spirit beast in the sea. This kind of tiger head shark especially liked to prey on creatures with immense spirit energy. Many sea spirit beasts were their food. Perhaps it had sensed the rich spiritual energy emitting from Bufang's body after he entered the water. At this moment, the tiger head shark crazily dashed toward Bufang. Its speed was as fast as lightning, and its sharp teeth glowed coldly. Bufang stood at the bottom of the water, indifferently watching the tiger head shark swooping down on him. His face was expressionless. The vermilion robe on his body fluttered in the water. Under the pressure of the tiger head shark, all the creatures within several miles around Bufang ran away. I was worried about who to find to lead the way, and now something comes to me. Bufang looked at the tiger head shark, and he couldn't help but twitch the corners of his mouth. The tiger head shark's head enlarged in Bufang's eyes. However, Bufang didn't move. Then, the tiger head shark hit the seabed. Boom, 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 boom. The seabed was shaken. Smoke and dust billowed, making the place hazy. Around them, many intelligent sea spirit beasts were watching. They wanted to see what would happen to that human. If the tiger head shark swallowed him, he would die. However, after a long time, the smoke and dust slowly settled. All the intelligent sea spirit beasts were startled by the scene in front of them, because the human who had been hit didn't die. Not only that, but he had also raised one hand to stop the tiger head shark's attack. He had used one hand to stop the ferocious tiger head shark. Bufang's face was calm. His hair was wrapped in his mental force, slowly floating. The tiger head shark's nose was grabbed by Bufang's black and white bandaged arm, which supported the shark's giant body. Your flesh is pretty tough. Bufang looked at the tiger head shark indifferently, saying. Then the bandage on his arm loosened. With a swoosh, the black and white bandages unraveled at the same time, turning into circles that bound the tiger head shark. A bestial roar echoed. The black and white Taotai souls emerged around Bufang's arm, opening their mouths to roar unceasingly. The tiger head shark was startled by the Taoye's aura and the Taoye's roar. It didn't think that this human could become so intimidating all of a sudden. Bufang's indifferent eyes looked at the tiger head shark. Then his feet stomped on the seabed, grabbing the bandage that tied the tiger head shark. He leaped up, landing on the shark's head. The tiger head shark was enraged, struggling unceasingly. Bufang cocked his head, raising his Taotai arm. His fist pounded. Boom! The tiger head shark was bewildered. It was pounded to the seabed by this punch. Some of its teeth were broken, and blood gushed out. How could this human be so brutal? All of the intelligent sea spirit beasts in the surroundings were also startled by this. Bufang's feet touched the tiger head shark's body. Instantly, a tremendous force was generated, pushing him toward the sea surface. He was like a cannonball. The tiger head shark was tied up, but it was dragged toward the sea surface. On the Netherworld ship, Yu and Hua were sitting on the deck, swinging their soft, white legs. They looked at the sparkling sea surface feeling board. Bufang had been on the seabed for around 1 hour. They didn't know what he had found there, or if he had found the way. Or, had Bufang died in the fish's belly? They heard that the spirit beasts in the endless sea were really brutal. Rumble. The sea surface exploded. A giant shadow dashed out of the sea, soaring into the sky. Then, it plunged into the sea, stirring up earth-shaking waves. Bufang's hand was still wrapped in bandages. He sat on the giant shadow, floating on the sea, looking at Yu and Hua, who were swinging their legs, then nodded. Now I know where to go. Bufang looked at Yu, then said. The tiger head shark was really upset. It just wanted to find something to eat, but it was beaten into a spirit beast that pulled the ship. Bufang calmly sat on the bow of the ship. One of his hands was wrapped in a bandage. The tiger head shark swam in front of him, breaking the waves as it sped towards a certain direction. Of course, the tiger head shark knew where the Black Dragon Palace was. It didn't expect that Master wanted to go to the Black Dragon Palace. The Black Dragon Palace was the oceanic species' forbidden land because it was the Black Dragon King's territory. Except for the Black Dragon King's subordinates, the other members of the oceanic species who entered the Black Dragon Palace will be mercilessly killed. Those people's goal was to go to the Black Dragon Palace. How strong were they? This tigerhead shark was really stupid. It dared to fight against such an expert. With the tigerhead shark leading the way, everything became much easier. Yu and Hua went back to their cabins to sleep, while Bufang sat on the deck, looking at the endless sea. The waves on the sea were magnificent, and the netherworld ship looked like a small boat, which made people feel small and insignificant. All of a sudden, a tiger-head shark that was moving forward suddenly stopped. Bufang was bewildered. Frowning, Bufang released his mental force to communicate with the tiger-head shark. It was a skill that Bufang had just learned. He used his mental force to communicate with the spirit beasts. You mean in front of us is the territory of the Gold Shrimp tribe? You don't dare to move forward anymore? The tiger-head shark's answer surprised Bufang. The Gold Shrimp tribe. Wasn't that the oceanic species where Aobai was? Were the Gold Shrimp tribe and the Black Dragon Palace not on the same side? Then, why did the Black Dragon Palace send an emissary to find him? Bufang narrowed his eyes. He was a little bewildered. He had thought that the Gold Shrimp tribe and the Black Dragon Palace were on the same side, but now it seemed strange. If they weren't on the same side, how did the Black Dragon King's emissary know that the shrimp ancestor was here? While Bufang was deep in thought, the seawater surged and bubbled. Then, a column of water slowly rose. The tiger-head shark's body shivered, as though it was frightened. Bufang scanned around and found that the tiger-head shark and the netherworld ship were surrounded. Columns of water floated around them. On those water columns, the oceanic species experts were holding weapons, aiming at Bufang and the tiger-head shark, releasing their hostility. Who are you? You dare to invade the Gold Shrimp tribe's territory. The leading expert's body surged with spirit energy. He was in existence at the divine soul realm. He held a big pincer in his hand, which clanged unceasingly, releasing terrifying energy fluctuations. The Gold Shrimp tribe? Bufang furrowed his brows, contemplating. Xiaopi was the shrimp ancestor of the Gold Shrimp tribe. Should he take Xiaopi to the Gold Shrimp tribe or the Black Dragon Palace? It was a serious question. I'm asking you a question. Are you mute? All of a sudden, the expert holding the big pincer shouted, interrupting Bufang's thoughts. Bufang's eyes slightly lifted, indifferently looking at that expert. I'm talking to you. Are you mute? That expert glared at Bufang. His big pincer opened and closed, pounding on the sea surface, causing it to explode. At this moment, his power was unparalleled. The tiger-head shark was so scared that it could only hide in the water and shiver. This expert's cultivation base was higher than his, so he could only admit defeat. After all, the opponent was a member of the Gold Shrimp tribe. Even if he could defeat him, he still had to admit defeat. Although the Gold Shrimp tribe had declined, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. This great clan wasn't something a tiger-head shark like him could deal with. You talk too much. I wanted to go to the Black Dragon Palace first, but now I'll go to the Gold Shrimp tribe to take a look. Bufang slowly rolled his bandage, speaking casually. That expert's eyes shrank. Presumptuous. You think you can go to the Gold Shrimp tribe just because you want to? That expert's face was filled with anger. Then, the water column exploded, and the expert waved his huge pincer, aiming at Bufang. He wanted to kill Bufang with one pincer. He had seen many people who wanted to take advantage of the Gold Shrimp tribe's decline to take a share of the pie. However, Bufang, who was sitting on the netherworld ship, was looking at the expert in front of him with an appreciative gaze. It's indeed a plump crab. The corners of Bufang's mouth twitched as he said indifferently. Then, that expert's body shook, and his eyes shrank. A plump crab? Who was this human talking about? How did he know that his true form was a big crab? Boom! The big pincer swung down, causing a rumbling sound. Then, the Gold Shrimp clan's expert's face revealed a frightened expression. The expressionless human in front of him had grabbed his big pincer with one hand. Chapter 929. Regarding crabs, Bufong had a deep understanding of them. When he was in the Light Wind Empire, Bufong had cooked a dish called pan-fried flower crab. However, that flower crab and this giant crab in front of him couldn't be compared at all. The difference between the two ingredients was really huge. Looking at the green-colored crab, which was as big as a human, waving its giant pincers, Bufong's face instantly became odd. Originally, this crab had a human body, but now it had transformed. Looking at this giant crab, Bufong gently exhaled. His hand suddenly exerted force, grabbing the giant pincer and throwing it out. The crab was bewildered. It found that the scene in front of it was constantly changing. Then, its giant body was flung out, smashing into the sea in the distance, creating huge waves. Bufong's feet stomped on the deck of the Netherworld ship, and his body shot out like an arrow. His speed was extremely fast. Stepping on the waves, he dashed toward the giant crab that had fallen into the sea. In just a blink of an eye, the sea water exploded, and the giant crab fiercely waved its giant pincer, aiming at Bufong's head. Damn human, die! This pincer was a powerful strike that the giant crab had gathered all of its energy. The void seemed to be slightly wailing under this strike. In the distance, the tiger head shark felt the terror of this strike, and its body shivered a little. Worthy of being an expert of the gold shrimp tribe. Indeed, it was formidable. Although it was just a crab of the shrimp tribe, its fighting prowess was really terrifying. The tiger head shark opened its mouth full of sharp teeth, spurting out a little water. In fact, at this moment, it was a little excited. It actually hoped that the gold shrimp tribe's expert could smash the human into pieces. After all, it had been tortured by that human on the seabed. To it, that was an experience that it couldn't bear to recall. Its resentment toward the human was really thick. After all, it was also a creature of the oceanic species. At that time, as long as it submitted to the gold shrimp tribe, it could save its life. However, if it fell into that human's hands, who knew what would happen to it? Therefore, in his heart, he still hoped that this human would be killed. It would be best if the huge ship behind him was blasted into pieces. However, it was obvious that his plan was going to fail, because that crab warrior's attack did not cause any danger or trouble to that human. The human seemed to be a little too strong. The attack of the Divine Soul Realm crab was actually easily blocked by a human. Boom! There was another explosion, and the surface of the sea exploded. Once again, the huge crab was caught by Bufong and smashed into the distance. The tiger head shark was almost numb. Looking at the powerless crab, he felt more and more hopeless. The shadow that this human had cast on him was getting thicker and thicker. Encountering this human was a disaster for him. The surrounding gold shrimp tribe experts never expected that the crab commander wouldn't be this human's opponent. When a few crab experts saw that their leader was in danger, they waved their big pincers and rushed towards Bufong. Bufong quietly stood on the surface of the sea, the vermilion robe draped over his shoulders, slowly fluttering in the sea breeze. His eyes shifted as he looked at the crab experts rushing towards him. The corner of his lips curled up into a smirk. A moment later, his spirit sea suddenly surged with great waves. Bufong's mental force was released, turning into a ripple spreading everywhere. In just a blink of an eye, it had covered the entire area. Boom! The seawater seemed to be pressed down by a huge force in an instant. The few crab warriors that were dashing over were pressed into the sea. Their eyes widened, filled with disbelief. The terrifying pressure that pervaded the air made them truly feel the strength of this human. They had never felt such a formidable aura. The seawater caved in, turning into a big bowl. And Bufong was standing at the bottom of that bowl. The waves around him rose, rumbling unceasingly. Bufong scanned the surroundings. Then, the tip of his foot gently touched the surface of the sea. Instantly, his body shot up into the sky like a dragon. Boom! In the seawater, the crab warriors were squeezed out. Their bodies seemed to twist. They turned into crab bodies, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. They didn't know what to do. Coincidentally, my heaven and earth farmland needs some seafood. You guys, Bufong faintly muttered. When these words fell into the ears of the crab powerhouses, they felt a trace of strangeness and unease. What did this human mean? Buzz, all of a sudden, a mysterious force expanded. Instantly, they felt their vision blur, disappearing above the sea. The tiger-head shark was dumbstruck. It bewilderedly looked at the crab warriors, who seemed to be as strong as it, disappearing mysteriously. Did the human blast them into the air? The crab leader popped its head out of the sea. It was bewildered, looking at Bufong. Its body shivered. Bufong clasped his hands, indifferently looking at the crab leader. Now, can you take me to the Gold Shrimp Tribe's location? The crab leader felt tears welling up in its heart. If it had known that this human was so strong, it wouldn't have been so stubborn. Many humans had come to the endless sea to explore, but it was the first time it had met such a savage human. Okay. The crab leader could only wave its claws, stammering. Swish! Bufong retrieved his mental force. Instantly, the sea resumed its tranquil state. The bowl-like shape disappeared, leaving only the swirling water. Bufong landed on the netherworld ship. Standing on the deck, he looked at the tiger-head shark shivering in the sea. You and the others looked at Bufong. They didn't expect that Bufong's cultivation base had reached such a level. You tiger-head shark, come to my heaven and earth farmland. I heard that if you cook the tiger-head shark meat with a special method, it will taste good. Bufong rubbed his chin, speaking casually. Instantly, the tiger-head shark shivered, its tail fluttering. Impatiently, he planned to flee into the distance. Damn it, the tiger-head shark didn't want to be blown into thin air. Looking at the tiger-head shark, which had fled far away in just a blink of an eye, Bufong exhaled gently. Xiao Bai, bring it back. Was inside the cabin, Xiao Bai, with lightning arcs sparkling on his body, slowly walked out. Receiving Bufong's order, Xiao Bai's eyes flashed with lightning arcs. A moment later, Xiao Bai started to run on the deck. Leaping one step, the metal wings on his back spread open. Lightning bolts thundered, and sizzling noises echoed unceasingly. Boom! The seawater was suddenly pushed to two sides by the pressure from Xiao Bai's body. Xiao Bai treaded on the water. Compared to Bufong's slow and elegant movements, Xiao Bai was like a wild beast. Every time he stepped on the water, the surface of the sea would explode. Boom! A moment later, the tiger-head shark, which was about to dive deep into the sea, felt a shadow above its head. The tiger-head shark was bewildered. Its eyeballs rolled upward. It saw a pair of palm leaf-shaped hands patting its body. The tiger-head shark was enraged. It might be afraid of that human, but this iron puppet dared to provoke it. Let's see if this shark will swallow this lump of iron. Boom! A loud explosion echoed. The tiger-head shark ferociously leaped. Its fish tail slapped the surface of the sea, and its body leaped up from the water. Sparkling and translucent water splashed everywhere, sparkling brilliantly. It was a leap filled with faith. Its operation was perfect, and it was full of ideas. However, reality had given the tiger-head shark a head-on blow. Facing the leaping tiger-head shark, the metal wings on Xiao Bai's back flapped, and his figure moved a certain distance. Then his giant metal feet stomped down. He stepped hard on the tiger-head shark's head. A loud explosion resounded. The tiger-head shark's huge body was immediately stepped into the sea. Xiao Bai's eyes twinkled. Inside his stomach, the black hole expanded. A moment later, the war god's stick appeared in Xiao Bai's hand, sparkling with lightning arcs. Holding the war god's stick in one hand, Xiao Bai tilted his head and gently poked the tiger-head shark that had just emerged from the sea. Zzz. The war god stick emitted terrifying lightning power. Bufong, who was standing on the netherworld ship, felt a terrifying lightning strike. The crab leader in the seawater was startled. It jumped out of the seawater with a terrified expression. This was a puppet that could discharge electricity. What was the scariest thing for the experts of the sea race? It was a lightning strike. To them, it was like a nightmare. As long as the endless sea had a thunderstorm, the experts of the sea race would hide deep in the seabed, not even bothering to show their heads. It was because they were afraid that the lightning would strike them and kill them. Bufong blinked. Hua seemed to be curious, lying on the deck to watch the battle in the distance. Indeed, the tiger head shark was poked into the seabed. Shortly after, circles appeared in its eyes. Its white belly flipped as it rose from the sea. His body was still trembling slightly. Xiao Bai's poke had almost electrocuted it to death. Grabbing the tiger head shark's tail, Xiao Bai stepped on the water and returned. His metal wings folded as he landed behind Bufong. Xiaopi was still blowing bubbles above its head. After taking the tiger head shark into the farmland, Bufong was suddenly curious about the layout of the farmland. However, at this moment, he didn't have much time to manage it. Anyway, he wasn't too worried. No matter what, the farmland had Johan-san. That fellow was much stronger than those oceanic species experts. Those fellows couldn't raise any waves in the farmland. The crab leader had seen how terrifying Bufong was. This time, he didn't hesitate, choosing to lead the way. Of course, another reason was because he saw the shrimp ancestor lying on Xiao Bai's head. Of course, the crab leader wasn't unfamiliar with the shrimp ancestor. He didn't expect that human to bring the shrimp ancestor to the gold shrimp tribe. With a strange face, he looked at Bufong and Xiaopi. Then, the crab leader led the way, diving deep into the seabed. Bufong was bewildered, looking at you. You crossed her arms, her mind flickering. Instantly, the netherworld ship parted the waves, starting to dive. Bufong was bewildered. It turned out that the netherworld ship could operate like this. So, why did he foolishly dive into the seabed alone? Of course, you was too lazy to answer him. The netherworld ship was a ship that could travel through the void of secret realms. How could it be difficult for it to travel in the sea? The crab leader swam fast in front, and the netherworld ship slowly followed behind it. There seemed to be a thin membrane around the netherworld ship, which prevented the seawater from invading. It was really convenient. Shortly after, as the crab leader went deeper, the scene underground gradually changed. In the eyes of Bufong and the others, a magical undersea city gradually appeared. Chapter 9:30. The netherworld ship followed behind the crab leader, breaking the waves and moving forward. The seabed also had different kinds of mountains. After crossing those mountains and the meandering rocks, they could see an exquisite undersea city. It was indeed a city. Although the buildings weren't really tall, they were gorgeous. Moreover, these undersea buildings were emitting radiance as if they were made of crystals. These crystal buildings had a leisurely style. Pavilions, terraces, and pavilions in the middle of the sea dazzled people's eyes. Rumble, rumble. As soon as the crab leader landed, a group of oceanic species experts swam out of the city. The leader was an expert with an octopus head. This expert's eyes were round, and so was his mouth. Some of his teeth were closed. His hand was holding an exquisite, sharp spear made of ore. Crab 3. Who's the one following you? You dare to bring outsiders to our gold shrimp tribe's territory. The expert with the octopus head let out a sharp cry. His voice seemed to be a kind of sound wave that lingered in the air, causing the seawater to tremble slightly. Crab 3 was the crab leader of the gold shrimp tribe. Actually, the gold shrimp tribe didn't only consist of gold shrimp. There were many other oceanic species experts, forming a big tribe. However, the gold shrimp tribe was still the leader of this big tribe. In the endless sea, the sea was boundless, and the sea tribe's creatures often fought for some resources. Thus, in the endless sea, many oceanic species creatures would choose to attach themselves to some strong tribes, becoming their protectors. For example, the strongest expert of the oceanic species, the Black Dragon King's Black Dragon tribe, had gathered many oceanic species in the endless sea, becoming the strongest force in the endless sea, which made many oceanic species creatures shiver in fear. Facing the mighty Black Dragon King, some oceanic species creatures who weren't willing to submit joined forces with other big tribes to resist the Black Dragon King. The Gold Shrimp tribe was one of those big tribes. Of course, after losing the shrimp ancestor who used to rule the endless sea, The gold shrimp tribe was just a relatively strong force in the endless sea. Facing the Black Dragon King, they couldn't even protect themselves. Brother Octopus. The people following me. Crab Three's face was a little grimaced. He was about to explain something. However, before he could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by the octopus with the octopus head. Brother Octopus and him were both guards of the Gold Shrimp Tribe, but they belonged to different guards. Brother Octopus's octopus army and his crab squad had always been in a state of competition. But now his team crab had been messed with by that human. Facing Brother Octopus, he was not confident. More importantly, he didn't want to cause any trouble. The main thing was that the Netherworld ship was following the Shrimp Ancestor, who had the guts to stop the Shrimp Ancestor from returning to the Gold Shrimp Tribe. Of course, this matter had to be reported to the First Prince as soon as possible. Don't say it. I know what you want to say. However, the duty of the Gold Shrimp Tribe's guards is to stop all the unknown creatures that want to get close to the Gold Shrimp Tribe. Crab 3. What you're doing is against the rules of the guards. Do you know that? Do you understand that you're going to be thrown into the frying pan? The 8 claws on Brother Octopus's face slowly fluttered. His tone suddenly became sharp. He swung the long spear in his hand, aiming at Crab 3. Crab 3's face instantly turned ashen. Don't mess around. I'm not in the mood to bicker with you. Oh, Crab 3, you're King scared? Brother Octopus, look down on you. That's why I can't let those unknown creatures behind you enter the Gold Shrimp Tribe. Brother Octopus rolled his eyes. The long spear in his hand swung, creating a wave. Unless, let me check the identity of the creatures on the black ship behind you. Check. Crab 3 was bewildered. Then, his face darkened. This Brother Octopus didn't want to give him face. A stinky octopus that had turned into a spirit dared to show off in front of Crab 3. If it was a normal day, Crab 3 would definitely use his crab claws to fight with this stinky octopus for 300 rounds. But now he didn't dare to. This anger, he had to swallow it back. All of a sudden, Crab 3's body stiffened, and his face became strange. That was because a faint voice came from the Netherworld ship behind him. You want to check us? Very good. Come here. His voice was calm. It was so calm that the oceanic species experts around were a little bewildered. A moment later, Brother Octopus's eyes narrowed. Did he think that Brother Octopus didn't dare to do that? Holding the long spear, Brother Octopus's body floated in the sea. Shortly, he came to Crab 3. Crab 3, you want to bring strange people into the Gold Shrimp Tribe? Brother Octopus, won't let you pass. You purposely let the third prince leave the Gold Shrimp Tribe. You've angered His Highness. From now on, I will represent His Highness to punish you. Brother Octopus narrowed his eyes. Then, he raised his octopus head, gliding toward the Netherworld ship. The Netherworld ship was shrouded in pitch-black nether energy. Brother Octopus and the others couldn't see anything on the ship. Thus, they had to get closer to check. Rumble. Boom. All of a sudden, the nether energy on the black Netherworld ship slowly parted. Instantly, the scene on the deck entered Brother Octopus's eyes. Humans? Brother Octopus saw Bufong, who was standing with his hands clasped behind his back, and Nethery, who was standing gracefully on the deck. Flowery, who was swinging her slender legs, was sitting on the deck. 3 living humans. Brother Octopus's mouth twitched. He heard that humans didn't taste good. He didn't expect to see 3 humans hiding behind Crab 3. What was Crab 3's purpose? Anyway, if those humans were Crab 3's people, Brother Octopus could have a good meal. It had been a long time since he had tasted the delicacy of humans. Crab 3 looked at Brother Octopus, who was drooling. His face shivered, not knowing what to say. Bufong clasped his hands, looking at Brother Octopus. Their eyes met in the sea. Hello, human. Octopus Bro was the first to grin. Looking at the soft and tender skin, it was really delicious. Brother Octopus's heart itched. I heard that you want to check, asked Bufong. Brother Octopus was bewildered. Then he narrowed his eyes, wielding the lance in his hand. Slowly, A flow of formidable energy pressed down on Bufong's team. I suspect that you're related to the rebel army. Get off the ship now and accept my inspection, said Brother Octopus. Far from him, Crab 3 covered his face with one hand. He could imagine Brother Octopus's fate. Crab 3 knew how brutal those humans were. Until now, he was still scared. Not to mention the fact that there was a terrifying iron puppet that could emit lightning in the cabin. Once the lightning bolts burst out, Brother Octopus would become a scorched octopus. We're getting off the ship to check? I'm sorry. I don't want to get off the ship. Let me show you something good. Bufong clasped his hands, his vermilion robe fluttering as he said nonchalantly, "Something good? What is it?" Brother Octopus was bewildered. The corners of Bufong's mouth rose as he clapped his hands. "Xiao Bai, come out and do some exercise." Just as Bufong's voice faded, the sound of footsteps slowly rang out from the cabin of the Netherworld ship. Rumble, rumble, the deck of the ship shook, and the seawater trembled. Brother Octopus's eyes suddenly narrowed as he stared at the cabin. His body suddenly felt a terrifying pressure. What's going on? What's in that cabin? Sizzle, sizzle. Brother Octopus suddenly felt an electric arc in the seawater, which made him feel a little numb. Numb? Where did that F** kingdom come from? Brother Octopus's eyes shrank. He took a deep breath, looking at the cabin. A round iron puppet slowly walked out. Lightning arcs were flickering in the puppet's eyes and around its body. Electric arcs? Wait a minute. Electric arcs. Brother Octopus was bewildered. A moment later, he screamed. Xiao Bai's eyes twinkled. The metal wings on his back opened, and the black hole in his abdomen expanded. He took out the war god stick, slapping it with one hand, shooting it toward Brother Octopus. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. The electric arcs on the war god stick stirred, making the seawater around it explode. Rumbling sounds resounded and caused a huge wave. Brother Octopus screeched, and the sound waves expanded. The oceanic species experts around were shaken by this sound wave, giving them a headache. However, at this moment, Brother Octopus had no other choice. As the war god stick pounded on him, he instinctively used all of his power. The electric arcs on the stick terrified him. He raised his long spear, thrusting it with all of his power. A water dragon swirled behind him. However, cracking sounds rang out. Brother Octopus was bewildered as he watched his long spear shatter. The iron stick with the electric arcs pounded on his body. Sizzle, sizzle, electric arcs shot out, covering Brother Octopus's entire body in just a blink of an eye. Brother Octopus rolled his eyes, his body convulsing. Eventually, after a boom, he transformed into his true form. It was a giant 8-tentacled octopus. However, at this moment, the octopus rolled its eyes and floated towards the surface like a sponge. Even though they were at the bottom of the sea, people could vaguely smell the aroma of grilled octopus fish. Was Brother Octopus electrocuted to death? Crab 3 was dumbstruck. The war god's stick returned to Xiao Bai's hand. His fan-like palm grabbed the stick, and Xiao Bai placed it on his neck. His eyes with electric arcs raked through everything. Bufong rose his hand, beckoning Brother Octopus. Immediately, Brother Octopus's body floated over. Grabbing one of the octopus claws, a lightning arc entered Bufong's body through the octopus's body. Bufong's brows twitched. This lightning was really overbearing. It was worthy of being the lightning punishment. Blood energy surged in Bufong's body, dispersing the electric arcs. His hand shook, and Brother Octopus's body disappeared. Such a big, fat octopus. We can't waste it. Bufong mumbled. The corners of Crab 3's mouth twitched. Indeed, Brother Octopus, who had been arrogant for less than 3 seconds, had followed his team's footsteps. No one knew what kind of nightmare was waiting for them. Anyway, did this human come to wipe out the oceanic species creatures? Rumble. Boom. While Crab 3 was bewildered, his mind flickered. He turned around and saw a group of oceanic species creatures walking out of the Crystal City, lining up on both sides of the city gate. The sound of the conch blowing the horn resounded, and the sound of the scallops flapping also filled the air. Many golden-haired experts were wandering around the city. Crab Three's face changed when he saw the leader. It's His Highness. His Highness came here personally. Chapter 9:31. A large group of oceanic species experts walked out of the Crystal City. The conches were playing, and the scallops were humming. It was quite a solemn scene. Bufong curiously looked at this scene. He was really curious about this novel scene. The leader was a golden-haired, middle-aged man with a mustache. He squinted his eyes, revealing a faint smile, which gave people a gentle feeling. The large group of people that came out of the Crystal City were the experts of the Gold Shrimp tribe. The leader was the Gold Shrimp tribe's crown prince. Crab 3 sucked in a breath of cold air. He had never thought that the crown prince would come out personally. Could it be that the crown prince had sensed the shrimp ancestor's aura? If that was the case, it was possible. The shrimp ancestor's identity was incomparably respected. He was the hope of the entire Gold Shrimp tribe. If the shrimp ancestor appeared, then it was normal for the Gold Shrimp tribe's crown prince to appear. The crown prince, Ao Sheng, immediately saw the shrimp ancestor lying on Xiaobai's head. The moment he saw the shrimp ancestor, his eyes lit up. The shrimp ancestor had actually returned. When Ao Bai told him this, he didn't believe it. He didn't expect that the shrimp ancestor would be brought back after such a short time. The smile on Ao Sheng's face became wider as he walked towards Bufong's group. Commander Crab, I've troubled you. Go back and have a good rest. Leave the rest to this crown prince. Ao Sheng said with a smile. When Crab 3 saw Ao Sheng's smiling face, his heart tightened. Then, he sighed and retreated far away. When he had let the third prince go, Ao Sheng had a grudge against him. However, he couldn't do anything about it. The third prince had treated him well. He couldn't just watch the crown prince kill the third prince. Bufong looked at the golden-haired man in front of him. He looked like Ao Bai, but compared to Ao Bai, this man was more gloomy and his mind was more meticulous. The golden-haired man was very elegant. When he arrived before Bufong and the others, he didn't mention anything about the shrimp ancestor. Instead, he welcomed them and led Bufong and the others into the Crystal Palace. You retrieved the Netherworld ship and followed behind Bufong, entering the Crystal City. As soon as they entered the city, the oceanic species experts on both sides of the street curiously looked at Bufong and the others. When they saw Shrimpy, who was lying on White E's head and spitting bubbles, all of them revealed shocked expressions. Then, they knelt down one after another. Some of the oceanic race powerhouses revealed looks of excitement and joy. The shrimp ancestor had returned. Was he going to bring them back to the peak? To our Gold Shrimp tribe, the shrimp ancestor is a kind of faith. For you to bring the shrimp ancestor back, this prince is very grateful. Ao Sheng looked at the situation around him, and the smile on his face grew wider. He said to Bufong, who was walking behind him, When did I say that I would bring the shrimp ancestor back? Bufong furrowed his brows, glanced at Ao Sheng, and said calmly. The smile on Ao Sheng's face froze. You must be joking. Of course, the shrimp ancestor belongs to our Gold Shrimp tribe. Didn't you bring the shrimp tribe here to return? Don't tell me you want to bring the shrimp ancestor back. Of course. I was just passing by the Gold Shrimp tribe. I originally wanted to see Ao Bai. Where is Ao Bai? Bufong said calmly. Hearing Ao Bai's name, the faces of many Oceanic clans experts changed. The atmosphere in the Oceanic clan suddenly became sharp. Everyone looked at Bufong with a strange and vigilant gaze. You, who was following behind Bufong, suddenly narrowed her eyes. In an instant, her eyes turned pitch black. Ao Sheng looked at Bufong, glaring at him. His eyes were filled with fear. Perhaps you don't know, but Ao Bai betrayed our Gold Shrimp tribe. I have chased him out of the tribe. Now, Ao Bai has joined the Black Dragon King's force. He is an enemy of our Gold Shrimp tribe. Ao Sheng said. Ao Bai betrayed the Gold Shrimp tribe? Bufong was bewildered. Ao Bai was the one who invited him to the Gold Shrimp tribe. Now, Ao Bai had been chased out? Why was that? Was it because of the fight for the throne? Were the princes fighting and killing each other for the ruling position of the Gold Shrimp tribe? That was possible. Bai had joined the Black Dragon King. That was why Bu Fong had received the Black Dragon King's invitation. So it was like that. Bai has bad intentions. He wants to bring our Gold Shrimp tribe to eternal damnation. Of course, His Highness won't allow it. Although you are Bai's friend, you have brought the Shrimp Ancestor. That means you're my friend. As long as you leave the Shrimp Ancestor here, our Gold Shrimp Ancestor will naturally treat you as a guest. Sheng said. His voice carried a hint of majesty. Bu Fong's brows slightly twitched, revealing a hint of surprise. What did Sheng mean? Was he threatening him? In the distance, Crab 3, who was watching everything, heard Sheng's words. His face changed. The atmosphere suddenly became tense. Sheng wanted to keep the Shrimp Ancestor. From his posture, he didn't mind using a tyrannical method. However, would such a tyrannical method be effective against that human? Crab 3's heart was full of doubts. The Gold Shrimp tribe had changed. The Crown Prince was domineering. It was possible that he would bring the Gold Shrimp tribe to eternal damnation. If the third prince was the leader, the Gold Shrimp tribe would have a chance to rise again. What a pity. Third Prince Bai was forced to leave by the Crown Prince. The Gold Shrimp tribe had lost a good leader. What if I don't keep Xiaopi? Bu Fong said casually. Xiaopi? Sheng narrowed his eyes, a little bewildered. Oh, Xiaopi is the Shrimp Ancestor you mentioned. It's this little guy, Bu Fong said. Then he grabbed Xiao Bai, who was lying on Xiaopi's head, and placed him on his shoulder. Xiaopi. The corners of Sheng's mouth twitched. The Gold Shrimp Ancestor, who could move freely in the endless sea, was given such a name. It was a disgrace to the Shrimp Ancestor's prestige. The Shrimp Ancestor belongs to our Gold Shrimp tribe. You, human, even if you don't want to keep him, you have to. Sheng's face gradually became cold. As soon as he finished speaking, many figures stepped on the water from the Crystal Palace, landing by Sheng's side. They were all old men, but from them, Bu Fong could feel a terrifying pressure, worthy of being the Gold Shrimp tribe. There were so many Holy Saint-level experts. Most of these old men were Holy Saint-level existences, and their cultivation bases had reached the divine spirit realm, where they had ignited 1 or 2 divine flames. The appearance of these old men had, without a doubt, expressed Sheng's attitude. This fellow had actually chosen to use peaceful means before resorting to force. If Bu Fong didn't hand over Xiaopi, did he want to take action and rob him? Looking at the tense atmosphere, Bu Fong gently exhaled. His indifferent eyes scanned the entire place, eventually landing on Sheng. Compared to Bai, Sheng was a little stupid. At least, Bai knew how to adapt to circumstances. Bu Fong hated threats the most, not to mention this kind of threat when he was tricked. First, he lured them into the city. Then, he used peaceful means before resorting to force, sending several Holy Saint-level experts. These experts were enough to obliterate Bu Fong. It was also the reason why they were so confident. The existence of these Holy Saint-level elders was the reason why the Gold Shrimp tribe could have a place in the endless sea. Crab 3 took a deep breath of seawater. His Highness had actually invited the Gold Shrimp tribe's elders. Indeed, it was because of the Shrimp Ancestor that these elders had taken action. Rumble, rumble. Divine altars emerged above the heads of those old men. A moment later, the oceanic species experts' eyes sparkled as they dashed towards Bu Fong. Their target was the Gold Shrimp Ancestor on Bu Fong's shoulder. Bu Fong rubbed Xiaopi's head, who was lying on his shoulder. Tilting his head, he slowly exhaled. The blast caused bubbles to appear in the seawater. Xiaobai, it's up to you now, Bu Fong said casually. As soon as Bu Fong's words fell, suddenly, the sound of lightning crackling resounded behind him. An elder of the Shrimp tribe dashed towards Bu Fong with a thunderous momentum. However, in just a blink of an eye, he was hit by an iron rod and was sent flying, crashing into the wall of the Crystal City. A crystal house was smashed into smithereens. After swallowing the lightning punishment, Xiao Bai's fighting capacity had increased a lot. It wasn't difficult for him to deal with ordinary saint sovereigns, let alone these holy saint-level experts who had only ignited 1 or 2 divine flames. The metal wings on Xiao Bai's back opened, and his figure dashed out like lightning. Many oceanic species experts were electrocuted, their bodies convulsing, and their bellies turned upside down. Boom! An elder of the shrimp tribe transformed into his true form. It was a giant gold shrimpy shrimp. Wielding his giant sickle, he slashed at Xiao Bai. However, even if he transformed into his true form, it was still useless. Xiao Bai's rod, which was filled with lightning, sent him flying, stirring up the sand on the seabed. Yu's long black hair fluttered. With one step, the netherworld ship emerged. Standing on the netherworld ship, Yu looked incomparably domineering. Ming Wei and Ming Chong burst out the same time, severely injuring an elder of the shrimp tribe. Don't look down on Hua, who had transformed into the 7-colored sky devouring python, which was enough to make many oceanic species experts tremble in fear. After all, it was an ancient divine beast, and its strength was extremely formidable. Ao Sheng's face was somewhat ashen. He didn't think that these humans would be so hard to deal with. However, the shrimp ancestor must stay. Only by leaving the shrimp ancestor behind could he obtain the orthodox recognition and become the true leader of the gold shrimp tribe. However, shortly after, Ao Sheng's eyes shrank, because he saw that the young man with an indifferent face suddenly had a kitchen knife in his hand. That kitchen knife glowed gold. With a shake, a dragon roar resounded in the void. As the saber slashed down, densely packed saber shadows rapidly converged. 1, 2, 3, a total of 13 knife shadows stacked together. They turned into an extremely terrifying knife. Boom! That knife shadow hovered above Ao Sheng's head. Instantly, Ao Sheng's legs went soft. He slumped on the ground, his eyes deathly gray. Rumble, terrifying energy burst forth, and the gold shrimp tribe's crystal city was instantly cut into 2 halves from middle. The knife shadow scattered. Bufong shouldered the dragon bone kitchen knife again. Indifferently, he looked at Ao Sheng, who was lying on the ground, and the corners of his mouth rose. If you weren't the descendant of Xiaopi, this knife would have been enough to kill you. All of you would have been turned into braised mantis shrimp. Xiaopi is the shrimp ancestor. If he wanted to return, I wouldn't have stopped him. However, you guys chose to snatch him. You deserve to die. Chapter 932. It was true that Xiaopi was the shrimp ancestor, but today, Xiaopi didn't have the prestige that the shrimp ancestor had. Its intellect was like that of a 2-year-old child, and it wasn't enough to be the leader of a big tribe. If they really returned Xiaopi, Bufong was sure that the gold shrimp tribe's juniors would be like vampires, sucking Xiaopi's blood dry. Of course, with Xiaopi's current ability, if it wanted to leave, this group of fellows wouldn't be able to stop it. However, Bufong couldn't leave Xiaopi in the endless sea. This time, Bufong had come to discuss this issue with Ao Bai. This was the decision that Bufong had made after careful consideration. If Xiaopi recovered the shrimp ancestor's memory and prestige in the future, if Xiaopi wanted to leave, Bufong naturally wouldn't stop it. However, right now, Bufong had to ensure Xiaopi's safety. Carrying the dragon bone kitchen knife, Bufong indifferently looked at Ao Sheng, who was lying on the ground. This fellow was so sinister. If Xiaopi fell into his hands, he would definitely be used. Compared to Ao Sheng, Bufong still felt that Ao Bai was more reliable. As for Ao Sheng saying that Ao Bai had betrayed the gold shrimp tribe, it was ridiculous. As long as Bufong still thought that Ao Bai was a member of the gold shrimp tribe, then he was a member of the gold shrimp tribe. Bufong looked at Ao Sheng with disdain. The corners of his mouth rose, and the dragon bone kitchen knife turned into a golden light, dispersing. Bufong clasped his hands, turned around, and walked out of the city. Xiaopi was lying on Bufong's shoulder, spitting out bubbles. Xiao Bai carried the war god stick, which was sparkling with lightning, and returned to Bufong's side. In the distance, the gold shrimp tribe's elders were lying on the ground, twitching. Yu tapped the ground with the tip of her foot, and her figure floated over. Hua turned into a little girl. She was chubby and cute. Of course, that was if she didn't stare at the gold shrimp tribe's expert in the distance. The group walked out of the messy crystal city. Aoshing only had himself to blame for all of this. If he had not chosen to take Xiaopi by force, Bufang would not have bothered to make a move. The netherworld ship appeared once again, and with a rumble, everyone stepped onto the netherworld ship and rushed out of the seabed. In the crystal city, Ao Sheng's face was gloomy. In the end, he punched the ground and gnashed his teeth. Anger flashed in his eyes. Damn it! Climbing up from the ground, Ao Sheng exuded a gloomy aura as he walked toward the crystal palace that had been split into two. Ao Sheng did not care about the destroyed city and palace at all. These things could be repaired with some time. The important thing was that the shrimp ancestor had run away. From Ao Bai, he learned that the shrimp ancestor had lost its intellect. At that time, when he received this news, his first thought was to control the shrimp ancestor. However, Ao Bai had rejected his idea. Thus, Ao Bai's rebellion was born. However, none of this could stop him. Ao Bai had left, and he had also set up a trap, waiting for the shrimp ancestor to enter. However, he had never thought that the humans who brought the shrimp ancestor would be so powerful. With this lineup, even if the Holy Land's Saint Sovereigns came, they might not be able to escape unscathed. However, how could that human be so relaxed? Who is that human? Ao Sheng's face was filled with anger as he rushed back to the main hall. Inside the Crystal Palace, there was a huge statue of the shrimp ancestor, which looked exactly like Xiaopi. In front of the shrimp ancestor statue, a huge jade plate was floating. The jade plate was carved with many mysterious patterns, and a terrifying aura was moving around it. He rushed into the main hall. Ao Sheng's eyes were filled with madness. The aura on his body burst forth as he dashed forward, grabbing the jade plate. You don't want the shrimp ancestor to return, right? Then, this highness will completely destroy the shrimp ancestor's hope of returning to the gold shrimp tribe. Ao Sheng said crazily, and his face couldn't help but reveal a smile. Outside the main hall, the elders walked in as though they were convulsing. From time to time, electric arcs flashed on their bodies. When they saw Ao Sheng's actions, they were all shocked, and they all shouted to stop him. However, it was too slow. Ao Sheng didn't care about them at all. A sharp sawtooth sickle appeared in his hand, and he slashed it down. A series of clanging sounds rang out. The jade plate was instantly cut in half, and a terrifying energy rushed out. Buzz! The entire Crystal Palace seemed to be trembling. Your Highness, this time, you've really messed up a big matter. An elder felt as though all of his strength had been sucked out of his body. He sat on the ground, shaking his head with a face full of grief and indignation. Messed up. Then, let's make things worse. Ao Sheng laughed. The jade plate crumbled, and a wisp of black chi immediately flew out from it. It turned into a pitch-black figure that circled around the hall. The resentment of the shrimp ancestor. Only by releasing you can we completely cut off the hope of the shrimp ancestor's return. Boom! A jet of black energy suddenly fell, instantly rushing into Ao Sheng's body. Ao Sheng's entire body emitted a pitch-black energy, and his eyes became scarlet. The energy on his body continued to soar. Feeling the surge of energy, Ao Sheng's eyes instantly revealed a crazed look. Endless Sea, a netherworld ship, was slowly moving forward. Yu and Hua were sitting on the deck, looking at the clear blue sky and feeling the sea breeze, which made them feel a little relaxed. From time to time, fish would jump out of the water. Under the illumination of the sun, the scales of those fish would sparkle. Bufang stood in front of the ship, and Xiaopi was lying on his shoulder, blowing bubbles. Rumble. Bufang was thinking about his next trip. He didn't expect that the trip to the gold shrimp tribe would be so unpleasant. The oceanic species experts were even more unfriendly than he had imagined. Then, whether he should go to the Black Dragon King or not became a problem that Bufong needed to consider. However, after thinking about it, Bufong felt that since he was already here, it wouldn't be good to just go back. The entrance to the Heaven Chief realm was about to open, and Bufong didn't know when it would open. He had to deal with all the things that needed to be dealt with. Anyway, with his current cultivation base, even if he couldn't defeat the Black Dragon King, if he wanted to run, the Black Dragon King wouldn't be able to do anything to him. After all, with Yu and Xiaobai, he could go to the Endless Sea. Thus, after thinking it through, Bufong felt his heart relax. Since he was in a good mood, he needed to cook a delicacy to celebrate. Bufong glanced at Hua and Yu. Then, his mind flickered, and his figure entered the heaven and earth farmland. As soon as he entered the farmland, Bufong landed on a grassland that was full of green grass. This grassland belonged to an area that had not been cultivated. Moving forward, Bufong soon saw the small wooden hut. Neo Hansen was lying on the chair, snoring loudly. Many of the ingredients in the farmland had already matured. The cabbages were all ripe, and they had already been harvested. The exploding flame peppers were like lanterns hanging on the branches, blooming with resplendent radiance. At the place where the phoenix blood vermilion fruit was planted, a small sapling had already grown. That sapling's leaves were lush, and it was full of spirit energy. This made Bufong very curious about the fruit. The seedlings in the paddy field had already grown up, and soon they would bear rice ears. At that time, what Bufong needed to do was wait for the harvest season. "Oh, Owner Bu, why are you here?" As if sensing Bufong's aura, Neo Hansen's ferocious bull head immediately approached Bufong with a face full of smiles. "I'm here to get some ingredients." Bufong glanced at Neo Hansen. Because Neo Hansen had managed the farmland so orderly and full of vitality, Bufong was not as cold to Neo Hansen. "Ingredients? What kind of ingredients does Onerbu need?" Neo Hansen asked as he scratched one of his horns that was broken off. "Where's the seafood that was thrown in not long ago?" "Seafood? You mean those messy oceanic species things?" "In the river," Neo Hansen said, bringing Bufong to the riverbank. Bufong didn't know if it was just an illusion, but he felt that the river had become much wider. The oceanic species crabs were crawling in the river, and Brother Octopus was lying in the river, stretching his body comfortably. The tiger head shark was still lying on its stomach, apparently still recovering from Xiaobai's electric shock. Brother Octopus seemed to have sensed something, so he opened his eyes and looked at Bufong. His round mouth instantly let out a sharp whistle. In the next instant, the river water exploded, and an octopus tentacle pierced toward Bufong. Neo Hansen was instantly enraged. Hadn't this animal been taught a lesson enough? It actually dared to attack Owner Bu. However, Bufong waved his hand, signaling Neo Hansen to stop. Then, he raised his hand and grabbed the octopus tentacle. "I didn't think of using octopus tentacles as an ingredient, but now it's just right," Bufong said casually. Brother Octopus rolled his eyes. Then, he saw a kitchen knife appear in Bufong's hand, gently slashing. Swoosh! The octopus tentacle was cut. Brother Octopus screamed, his body curling into a ball. "This damned human!" The corners of Bufong's mouth rose. Then, he waved his hand toward the river. Instantly, a crab with a blood lobster in its pincers was summoned by Bufong. He threw the blood lobster back into the river. Bufong nodded at Neo Hansen, then picked up the crab, turning around to leave. "Owner Bu, take care. If you want ingredients, you can come again. The heaven and earth farmland will always be your home," Neo Hansen shouted behind Bufong in a flattering manner. This fellow was becoming more and more fond of this relaxing and comfortable farmland. Living here was too comfortable. The illusionary void shook. Then, under the curious gazes of Hua and Yu, Bufong walked out of the illusionary void, holding a big crab and an octopus tentacle. As if he had sensed Hua and Yu's gazes, Bufong nodded at them, his face emotionless. "The weather is so good. Let's have steamed crabs with wine. And a stir-fried squid tentacle." Bufong looked at them, waving the ingredients in his hand. Hua and Yu blinked, then lifted their heads. Bufong was bewildered, also lifting his head. Originally, the sky of the endless sea was cloudless. However, at this moment, dark clouds were rolling, covering the entire sky. The sky darkened in just a blink of an eye. It was like the prelude of a storm. Bufang coughed, then continued. The sea breeze is so cool. This kind of ingredient should be cooked into a delicacy to liven things up. This time, I'll cook steamed crabs with wine. They're absolutely delicious. Ignoring Bufang's embarrassment, Bufang announced the name of the dish. Hua, and Yu's eyes brightened. The two foodies couldn't help but swallow their saliva. Chapter 9:33. Looking at the sky, it seemed like a storm was coming. Bufang wasn't sure how terrifying the storm on the endless sea was. However, at this moment, he wasn't afraid of the storm at all. Holding the crab in his hand, the corners of his mouth curled upwards. The autumn air is refreshing. Let's steam some hairy crabs to eat together. Bufang sat cross-legged on the netherworld ship. Yu and Hua looked at him with strange faces. The storm was coming, but Owner Bu could still cook so calmly. Indeed, he was worthy of being Owner Bu. Taking out the black turtle constellation wok, his mind flickered and the pitch-black wok floated in front of Bufang. Opening his mouth, a dark golden flame spurted out from his mouth, burning fiercely under the black turtle constellation wok. Rumble. In the sky, black clouds piled up unceasingly, as if there was a thick pressure that instantly shrouded everything. In the sky above the endless sea, the storm's power was much more terrifying than it was on the continent. At the same time, a great wave was set off on the vast ocean. The originally calm ocean began to rise and fall at this moment. Waves were constantly rising. You stood on the bow of the ship, looking into the distance. The surface of the sea was sparkling, blown by the storm, raising waves after waves. The waves slapped on the netherworld ship, causing it to shake unceasingly. It was true. The storm was coming. You took a deep breath, her pitch-black eyes a little deep. However, when she turned her head to look at Bufang, she realized that Bufang was still concentrating on cooking the crab. However, when you looked over, she realized that Bufang was in a daze. Owner Bu was in a daze? Actually, at this moment, Bufang's mind was having an intense conversation with the system. Steamed hairy crabs with wine. Actually, this wine would be better with beer. However, Bufang was in the Hidden Dragon continent. Where could he find beer? The only wines he had were the Ice Heart Jade Urn wine and the Frost Blaze Path Understanding brew. It was not that it was impossible to use these two wines to steam the hairy crabs, but it was better to use these wines to make drunken crabs. However, since the system was so stingy that it didn't even give a single bottle of beer, Bufang could only choose to steam it with the Ice Hard Jade Urn wine. First, Bufang fetched a large basin, used a rope to tie the crab's body, and placed the large crab into the basin. With a thought, 2 jars of Ice Heart Jade Urn wine appeared in his hands. 1 jar in his left hand and 1 in his right. When the lid of the wine jar was opened, a rich aroma wafted out. Under the blowing of the sea breeze, the fragrance spread for 10 miles. Gulp, 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 Bufang poured the Ice Heart Jade Urn wine into the large basin. After the wine had just covered the large crab, Bufang began to let the crab rest. Taking advantage of the time when the crab was drinking, Bufang prepared to process Brother Octopus's octopus tentacles. The dragon bone kitchen knife appeared in his hand. After twirling the knife, he cut the octopus tentacles into pieces. After the soft, fat, and tender octopus tentacles were cut, they were marinated with sauce. Bufang took out the exploding flame peppers that he had planted in the heaven and earth farmland. After cutting the exploding flame peppers into pieces, he prepared some scale-tail scallions and diced them, saving them for later use. The black turtle constellation wok was already heated, and the temperature inside the wok was extremely high. At this time, the endless sea was already raging with strong winds. The wind howled, blowing Bufang's hair and his vermilion robe, causing it to flutter. Cooking in the wind seemed to have a different flavor. The corners of Bufang's mouth rose. He poured oil into the black turtle constellation wok. When the oil sizzled, he poured the chopped purple garlic and pepper into it. White smoke floated up as Bu Fong began to stir-fry. As the exploding flame peppers were stir-fried, a wave of spicy aroma wafted out, attracting Hua and Yu's gazes. After stir-frying for a while, the ingredients in the wok bloomed brilliantly in the air. After stir-frying for a while, he poured the cut octopus tentacles into the wok. The octopus tentacles were cooked very quickly, so it was a test of Bu Fong's control of the fire. As soon as the octopus tentacles were placed into the wok, the aroma of the stir-fried octopus flesh was simply tempting. Hua and Yu had long been staring at the dish in the black turtle constellation wok. They were very expectant. Sizzle, sizzle. Bu Fong held the spatula in one hand and the black turtle constellation wok in the other. He shook the wok, stirring the ingredients inside. Steam surged and the aroma filled the air. When the octopus tentacles were cooked and slightly curled up, Bu Fong took it out of the wok. He poured the stir-fried octopus tentacles onto a blue and white porcelain plate. The exploding flame peppers looked as though they were about to burst into flames. They constantly bloomed with flame-like radiance, which was reflected in people's eyes. After sniffing for a while, the aroma billowed. The wind blew, blowing the aroma away. However, it couldn't blow away Yu and Hua's desire for this delicacy. Don't rush. Let's eat later. The main dish hasn't been served yet, Bu Fong said. He walked to the big pot, lifting the lid. The big crab inside was already spitting bubbles. Placing the steamer on the black turtle constellation wok, he fished the crab out, drained it of the wine, and placed it in the middle of the steamer. The wine that had soaked the crab was poured into the wok to steam the crab. Covering the steamer, Bu Fong urged the heaven and earth obsidian flame to burn even stronger. Boom, boom, boom. The flame shot up into the sky, burning unceasingly under the black turtle constellation wok. The wine in the wok began to boil rapidly. As the wine evaporated, the aroma of the wine constantly lingered and spread. In the sky, the dark clouds became denser. It was like a drop of ink had been dropped into water. It was a ghastly sight. On the surface of the endless sea, because of the storm, the waves became more and more violent. The surface of the sea was undulating. However, Bu Fong was still so calm. He sat on the netherworld ship, his mental energy winding around the black turtle constellation wok, sensing the changes of the crab inside. The flow of spirit energy and the change of the meat quality needed to be strictly controlled. Rumble. In the sky, thunder and lightning suddenly appeared. An ear-splitting explosion resounded through the horizon. The sea seemed to have gone crazy. It constantly rolled up, and the waves soared to the sky. A monstrous wave suddenly appeared in the distance. It was like a terrifying giant beast swallowing the netherworld ship. This was a first wave. The wave was dozens of meters high, and it seemed as though it could swallow the heaven and earth. However, on the netherworld ship, the people didn't care about the wave at all. They opened the steamer. Rolling steam surged up from within. The steam was so hot that it was incomparably dense. The aroma of wine and crab meat condensed, winding around people's nostrils. In the steamer, the crab had already turned red. It lay quietly on top of the steamer, emitting a fragrant aroma. When the crab was taken out from the steamer, Yu and Hua's eyes instantly lit up. The dragon bone kitchen knife appeared in his hand, cutting off the crab's legs, leaving only the round body. He opened the crab's shell. With a swish, juice flowed down, and rolling steam soared to the sky. Inside the crab shell, there was a yellow crab paste that was viscous. It was somewhat fragrant and somewhat beautiful. What a fat crab! Bu Fong looked at the crab with thick crab paste, and he couldn't help but sigh. With a flick of the dragon bone kitchen knife, he cut out the crab's intestines, lungs, stomach, and heart. Then, he used the knife to cut the crab's body into 3 portions. The 3 steaming hot portions were given to Yu and Hua respectively. After receiving 1/3 of the crab, their eyes squinted. It was a kind of joy that came from the bottom of their hearts. The crab paste was taken out by Bu Fong, and he placed it in a blue and white porcelain bowl. A jar of frost-blazed path understanding brew was prepared, along with the porcelain cups. The clear wine was poured into the cups, one for each person. The storm continued. The waves shook the sky, unceasingly slapping down, causing the netherworld ship to shake violently. Sometimes the waves would rise, and sometimes it would fall. It was really exciting. In the sky, the storm condensed, turning into heaven-shaking lightning. At the center of the vortex, there seemed to be a thunder dragon spiraling. It was a crashing sound. The thunder dragon instantly struck down from the sky. Boom, boom, boom. On the deck of the ship, Xiao Bai had appeared. His eyes twinkled, and the war god's stick was in his hand. Bufang looked at Xiao Bai in surprise. Then, the metal wings on the ladder's back opened. With a roar, he soared toward the lightning in the sky. Disregarding his own safety, he dashed toward the lightning. This was a great courage. Rumble. An electric light flashed. Xiao Bai was already close to the storm. In the endless sea, the oceanic species experts emerged. Because of the storm, the seabed was really oppressive. Many creatures had come out to take a breather, and they happened to see Xiao Bai flying up into the sky. He wielded the war god's stick, fiercely attacking the lightning. It seemed like he wanted to smash the lightning into pieces. However, as the thunder rumbled, the sky seemed to become a sea of lightning. Lightning arcs danced unceasingly. Boom, boom, boom. One after another, lightning dragons bombarded Whitey, wanting to blast it into pieces. However, Xiao Bai flapped his wings, and the black hole on his abdomen twisted. Facing the lightning, he raised his belly. The lightning arcs were swallowed by Xiao Bai's belly. That scene was really shocking. At least, the oceanic species creatures looked as if they had just seen a ghost. Someone was swallowing lightning in the sky of the endless sea. Who was he after all? Regarding Xiao Bai's hobby of swallowing lightning, Bufang didn't know what to say. Shaking his head, Bufang's eyes shifted to the steaming hairy crab in his hand. The sea breeze blew, and the weather was cool. Eating a hairy crab was just right. The hairy crab had been steamed with wine, and its original fishy smell had disappeared. The crab shell was rosy, and the crab meat was creamy, white like milk. There was also a fragrance lingering around. Grabbing the hairy crab, Bufang opened his mouth and bit the crab meat. Crunching sounds echoed. The soft crab shell was bitten off by Bufang, and the crab meat and crab shell entered Bufang's mouth. As soon as the crab meat entered his mouth, the aroma of the steaming crab meat flooded through Bufang's nostrils. The crab meat's texture was extremely soft, and it had a little salty taste. However, this kind of taste was just right. The salty taste had a faint aroma. When the soft crab meat entered his mouth, it was incomparably smooth. Together with the crab shell, which wasn't really hard, it had a special flavor. Eating a mouthful of white crab meat and drinking a mouthful of warm wine, this storm passed very comfortably. Chapter 9:34. What was the main ingredient in eating a hairy crab? First, it should be the crab roe, which had a rich crab flavor. The crab roe was the essence of crab. Then, it was the soft and tender crab meat in the crab's body, which gathered the essence of the crab. With one bite, the salty and tender texture burst out in an instant. It was like a feather gently scratching in one's mouth, making one involuntarily intoxicated. Hua, and you ate happily. The delicious crab meat seemed to melt in one's mouth, making one's tongue seem to be tied up. Halfway through, Bufang picked up a blue and white porcelain spoon, gently scooping out a spoonful of crab roe from the porcelain bowl. This crab roe was slightly sticky, and there wasn't a lot of it. Because Bufang controlled the heat just right, the crab roe didn't completely solidify. Scooping up the orange-yellow crab roe, Bufang first poured it over Yu's half-eaten crab meat. The orange-yellow crab roe stained the milky crab meat, presenting a different kind of beauty and temptation, making one's fingers twitch. Hua blinked her tri-flower snake eyes, sniffing the crab roe in the air. Her face couldn't help but reveal an excited expression. She raised the crab meat in her hand, signaling Bufong to give her a spoonful. The second spoonful, Bufong naturally scooped the crab roe for Hua. The sticky crab roe with some congealed particles poured over the crab meat, making the corners of Hua's mouth involuntarily open, drooling. The plump crab meat, coupled with the fragrant crab roe, this combination had completely captured Hua's heart. After taking a bite, the orange-yellow crab roe overflowed from the corner of her mouth, bringing with it a rich fragrance, making one deeply intoxicated. Bufong also poured crab roe over it, eating a mouthful of crab meat. The soft and hot crab meat, together with the fragrant crab roe, completely stirred up one's taste buds. Soon, the three of them finished the crab meat. Hua licked her fingers with a dissatisfied look on her face. She didn't expect that crabs could be so delicious. Bufong wiped his hands clean and raised the cup of Frost Blaze Path Understanding brew to Hua and Yu. Both of their eyes lit up as they raised their wine glasses. Outside the ship, there were raging waves and torrential rain. Inside the ship, however, it was leisurely eating crab meat and fine wine. Eating different delicacies in different environments gave off an indescribable feeling. Picking up the chopsticks, Bufong picked up a piece of octopus tentacles and put it in his mouth. The octopus meat was very tender and full of elasticity. Its taste was similar to the demon frog meat, but it was not as chewy. When stir-fried together with the exploding flame pepper, the fragrance of the exploding flame pepper blended with that of the octopus tentacles. It was especially delicious. Not long after, the octopus tentacles on the plate were also swept clean. Even a few pieces of exploding flame peppers were eaten. In the end, the three of them laid on the Netherworld ship, rubbing their bellies with a satisfied look on their faces. This was a wonderful dining experience. Hua's eyes seemed to curve into the shape of a crescent moon, full of happiness. All of a sudden, Bufong sat up on the ship, looking at the sky outside. In the sky, lightning was still as fierce as before. After Xiao Bai's black hole had absorbed lightning for a while, it couldn't hold on anymore, falling down from the sky. Rumble, Xiao Bai stood on the sea surface. The waves constantly rolled, and Xiao Bai's body bobbed up and down. His entire body was covered in electric arcs, and the aura on Xiao Bai's body became more powerful. Boom! A rumbling sound rang out. The waves exploded. Xiao Bai's figure seemed to turn into a jet of light, dashing toward the Netherworld ship. Shortly after, he landed on the Netherworld ship. "Are you full?" Bufong looked at Xiao Bai, the corners of his mouth twitching as he asked casually. Xiao Bai's mechanical eyes twinkled. Then, he raised his hand, rubbing his round head. Lightning was also crackling on his head. Then, Xiao Bai quietly stood behind Bufong. Xiao Opi's compound eyes rolled. His figure turned into a jet of gold light, intending to land on Xiao Bai's head. However, as soon as he landed, a wave of electric arcs burst out. Xiao Opi's entire body shook as if he was convulsing. His numerous legs straightened, his face bewildered. Swoosh! Golden light shot out. Xiao Opi once again landed on Bufong's shoulder, lying on it. His entire body shivered, and he couldn't even spit out bubbles. Looking at this amusing scene, Hua couldn't help but chuckle. The storm continued, and the waves surged even more violently. There were even waves that were several hundred meters high. Those huge waves smashed toward the Netherworld ship, as if they wanted to smash the ship into pieces. Boom! A wave of surging water vapor rushed into the Netherworld ship, and the ship seemed to spin in the air. Fortunately, there was an invisible barrier outside the Netherworld ship, which prevented the seawater from entering. Once again, the Netherworld ship landed on the surface of the sea, slowly moving forward. This storm lasted for an unknown period of time. Bufong felt that the Netherworld ship had flipped several times in the air. However, this storm did not disappear. Bufong felt that it was strange, because according to the normal time, about a day had passed, but the storm was still howling. If he said that there was nothing strange, Bufong wouldn't believe it. Although the surrounding seawater was surging, the heads of the oceanic species, spirit beasts, and experts kept popping up. These oceanic species experts seemed to have gathered in the storm. This was even more strange. Under normal circumstances, the oceanic species creatures should be avoiding this storm. All of a sudden, the netherworld ship stopped, no longer moving forward. The surrounding waves surged, as if wrapping the netherworld ship within. In the sky, the thunderclouds turned into a vortex. There was a hole in the middle, and lightning constantly shot down from it. It seemed to echo each other. Countless oceanic species creatures widened their eyes, looking at this strange scene. Rumble. The seawater surged, and the bottom of the sea suddenly exploded. With a loud explosion, a huge figure rushed out from the bottom of the sea. This was a black dragon. It was different from the golden divine dragon in Bu Fong's mind. This black dragon only had one dragon horn, and the scales on its body were pitch black. It had 4 claws, and its eyes emitted a sharp radiance. This black dragon dashed out of the sea, twisting and turning in the sky. Its dragon roar echoed, making the oceanic species creatures around shiver uncontrollably. Bu Fong stood on the bow, squinting at the giant black dragon. If Bu Fong wasn't wrong, this meandering black dragon should be the Black Dragon King who had invited him to the Endless Sea. The strongest expert in the Endless Sea. Judging from the aura emanating from his body, he was worthy of the title of the strongest expert. Besides Lord Go and Hades' era, the Black Dragon King's aura wasn't weaker than the strongest Demon King. It turned out that the Hidden Dragon Continent also had a strong creature who had cultivated to such a level. Hua stood by Bu Fong, raising his head to look at the domineering Black Dragon King. His eyes couldn't help but twinkle. Rumble. Far from them, Ao Bai popped his head up, looking at Bu Fong excitedly. Owner Bu had come to the Endless Sea, indeed. When he had received the news not long ago, he couldn't believe it. Now that he saw Bu Fong with his own eyes, his body trembled in excitement. Ao Bai treaded on the waves, coming to the netherworld ship. Looking at the shrimp ancestor lying on Bu Fong's shoulder, he couldn't help but squint. Owner Bu, are you here to send a shrimp ancestor back? Ao Bai looked at Bu Fong, asking. Bu Fong stood at the front of the ship, glancing at Ao Bai, who was treading on the water column. You think too much. I'm here to tell you that the shrimp ancestor isn't coming back. Ao Bai's face stiffened, looking a little embarrassed. However, he didn't ask much. After all, the shrimp ancestor was in Bu Fong's hands, and he couldn't do anything to Bu Fong. He just sighed. If he were still in a gold shrimp tribe, he would definitely try his best to bring the shrimp ancestor back. But now, he was living under someone else's roof, staying under the Black Dragon King. Sometimes, he couldn't help it. What's going on with this storm? Bu Fong frowned, asking Ao Bai. This storm felt somewhat different, but Bu Fong couldn't tell what was different. Owner Bu isn't a creature of the Endless Sea, so it's normal that you don't know about it. It's because this kind of thing happens once in several thousand years, Ao Bai said. He stood on the water column, his blonde hair fluttering in the wind. This is the Endless Sea's Dragon Gate. It's about to open. This Dragon Gate is a miracle of the Endless Sea. Countless creatures of the oceanic tribes want to jump over the Dragon Gate. Even the strongest Black Dragon King is looking forward to it. Rumor has it that after crossing the Dragon Gate, one will have a chance to become a true dragon. Ao Bai said, become a true dragon? Bu Fong's eyes shrank, and he couldn't help but take a deep breath. A resonant dragon roar resounded. In the next instant, the Black Dragon King in the sky turned into a black-robed man. This man looked ferocious. His head was bald, and the muscles on his ferocious face were shaking. The man stood in the void. His eyes raked around, falling on the netherworld ship. When he saw Ao Bai, he squinted. In just a blink of an eye, the man disappeared from his spot. In the next moment, he reappeared beside Ao Bai. Ao Bai, is this the owner that you've always talked about with I? The shrimp ancestor is in this human's hand? The bald man's voice was rough. As soon as he opened his mouth, it was filled with a murderous aura. However, when he talked, he was kind. Comparing the two, it was a little strange. Ao Bai nodded. Facing the Black Dragon King, Ao Bai was still a little afraid. As the #1 expert of the endless sea, the Black Dragon King's power and position were unquestionable. The Black Dragon King widened his eyes, which were as big as bronze bells. His gaze moved, sweeping over Bufong and the others. He first looked at Bufong. Bufong's expressionless face didn't attract the Black Dragon King's attention for a long time. Soon, the latter saw Xiaopi, who was lying on Bufong's shoulder. "This is the shrimp ancestor. I didn't expect that the all-powerful shrimp ancestor, who could turn the clouds and rain with one hand, would become a little thing that had just gained spiritual intelligence. The price of breaking through the Dragon Gate is really terrifying." The bald Black Dragon King sighed. Looking at the shrimp ancestor, the Black Dragon King's gaze moved again. "It fell on you and Hua. When the Black Dragon King first saw you," he exclaimed in admiration. His eyes showed that he was stunned. Such a beautiful woman was really rare. However, when the Black Dragon King's gaze landed on Flowery's body, he was completely stunned. Seven-colored sky, devouring python. Oh my God! The Black Dragon King sucked in a breath of cold air, exclaiming in surprise. Hua's Triflower Snake eyes moved. She raised her small head, staring at the Black Dragon King. All of a sudden, the Black Dragon King's figure moved. As if he had teleported, he appeared in front of Hua. Yu and Bufong's body stiffened. This Black Dragon King, what did he want to do? However, a moment later, the Black Dragon King opened his mouth and said something that made Bufong and Yu speechless. Not only Bufong and Yu, but the oceanic species creatures around were also bewildered. "Little girl, I am the Black Dragon King of the Endless Sea Dragon Palace. I see that you have a bright future. How about you recognize I as your father?" Chapter 9:35. I'm the Black Dragon King of the Endless Sea Dragon Palace. "Little girl, how about you recognize me as your father?" The Black Dragon King excitedly appeared in front of Little Flower. His eyes were shining as he said that. His shiny bald head seemed to be shining at that moment. The surrounding people were bewildered. The corners of A.O. Bai's mouth twitched. He raised one hand to cover half of his face. "Black Dragon King, where's your integrity?" The Black Dragon King of the Endless Sea, the leader of countless oceanic tribes. Why do you look like a strange uncle trying to abduct a little girl with candy? Bufong expressionlessly looked at the Black Dragon King. He was also speechless by the Black Dragon King's behavior. He had thought that the Black Dragon King would be a dignified expert full of murderous aura. But now, it seemed that he was just a clown like Hades' era. Yu furrowed her brows. She stretched out her slender, white hand, pulling Hua behind her. Hua hugged Yu's thigh, sticking her little head out to watch curiously. Seeing this scene, the Black Dragon King suddenly felt that it was a pity. He raised his head and looked into Nethery's eyes. "Netherworld woman." The Black Dragon King's mouth twitched. However, while he was talking, the Black Dragon King looked at Hua, who was hiding behind you. He winked at Hua, as if he was teasing Hua. Little Blossom was dumbfounded. He was probably an idiot. "Come, my good daughter. Come to your father." The Black Dragon King looked at Hua, smiling as he reached out his hand, waving at her. Hua was an ancient beast, the seven-colored sky devouring python. The Black Dragon King could see through her at first glance. If the seven-colored sky devouring python grew to its peak, it would be a top-grade divine beast, not weaker than the divine dragon or the phoenix. If he could be the father of such an existence, he would be able to brag about it in the future. While this little girl was still young, he should quickly let her recognize him as her father. A.O. Bai and the other oceanic tribes' experts' faces twitched. "She hasn't even agreed yet, and you're already shamelessly acting like you're a father?" The Black Dragon King had once again refreshed their worldview. You couldn't help but roll her eyes at the Black Dragon King's shamelessness. Hua tugged at Yu's skirt and rolled her eyes like you. "Yo, little girl, come call me daddy." The Dark Dragon King continued to bend over, his face full of smiles, looking exactly like a human trafficker. Hua can't speak. Bufong opened his mouth, his voice cold and indifferent. The The Black Dragon King was taken aback, but the smile on his face remained the same. That's true. This girl has only grown to 2 colors. She's still a proper little brat. The Black Dragon King said with a smile. If the 7-colored sky-devouring python had 7 colors, it meant that it had completed its evolution, becoming a top-notch spirit beast that wasn't weaker than the divine dragon or the phoenix. Today, Hua only had 2 colors, and it was because she stayed with the Lord Go every day and was influenced by the Lord Go's energy. Otherwise, under normal circumstances, a young 7-colored sky-devouring python would need around 1,000 years to evolve to 1 color. After it became an adult, it would take even longer. The more it grew, the more time was needed. The Black Dragon King shook his head, continuing to wink at Hua. However, he didn't mention that he should ask Hua to call him daddy. In the sky, the dark clouds were still there, and the storm was still roaring and boiling. The storm rolled, and the sea waves soared. The sea was like an enraged beast, constantly roaring and roaring. Bean-sized raindrops mixed with seawater rained down from the sky, splashing all over the ground and smashing into the surface of the sea, creating many craters. The sound of the rain, accompanied by the clamor of the waves, lingered in the ears. Thunder boomed, and the atmosphere became even heavier. Aobai stood by Bufang. He lifted his head, looking at the whirlpool in the sky. His face became more solemn. It seems the Dragon Gate is about to open. Dragon Gate? What's that? Out of curiosity, Bufang asked if the Dragon Gate was useful to the oceanic species. Could it be useful to humans as well? If it wasn't useful, Bufang would return home. After all, it was a waste of time to wait here for the Dragon Gate, which was useless to him. The Dragon Gate. It's the Dragon Gate. That's where the chance is. It's said that every time the Dragon Gate opens, it needs a great chance to enter. Once you enter the Dragon Gate, you will have the chance to become a true dragon. I heard that there's immortal energy in the Dragon Gate. Aobai said. Bufang was a little bewildered as he listened to him. A great chance to enter the Dragon Gate? There's immortal energy in there? Bufang wasn't a stranger to the so-called immortal energy. When he was in the Bronze Palace, Bufang had taken in a wisp of immortal energy. However, the system seemed to have absorbed it. That was how it had helped him complete his turnover and level up. Thus, when Aobai mentioned immortal energy, Bufang's eyes brightened. If he could get another wisp of immortal energy, would the system level up one more time? If so, it could save Bufang a lot of time. Thus, Bufang suddenly had high hopes for the Dragon Gate. The Black Dragon King stood aside, throwing Bufang a sidelong glance. The Dragon Gate is just a name for our oceanic species. In your continent, there should be other names. It should be called the entrance to the Heaven Chief Realm, right? The Black Dragon King rubbed his round head, which seemed to be reflecting light. Bufang was bewildered. You were also bewildered. Bufang looked at the Black Dragon King, his face emotionless. What did this fellow just say? The entrance to the Heaven Chief Realm? The Dragon Gate was the King entrance to the Heaven Chief Realm? That entrance was above the endless sea? Bufang didn't know what to say. However, after thinking about it for a while, he found it reasonable. It had been almost 3 years since he had left the Bronze Palace. The chef in the Heaven Chief Realm had said that the entrance to the Heaven Chief Realm would open after 3 years. This timing was quite accurate. However, Bufang was a little surprised. Did they have to make such a fresh and unpretentious entrance to the Heaven Chief Realm? TSK. The last time a Dragon Gate opened, this Dragon King was just a little dragon. I was so excited when I saw my dad break the limit and enter the Dragon Gate. Today, this Dragon King also wants to try. I want to break the Dragon Gate's barrier, just like my dad did. I want to obtain the chance to become a true dragon. The Black Dragon King patted his bald head and said, looking at the situation, this storm will be brewing for a few more days. When the storm disperses, it will be the time for the Dragon Gate to appear. The Black Dragon King said. Bufang couldn't help but narrow his eyes. There were still a few more days, Valley of Gluttony. Inside the kitchen of the Gluttony God's building, the first Valley Master of the Valley of Gluttony was lazily sitting on a chair with his legs crossed. The tuft of white hair on his head was slowly fluttering in the wind. He looked at Xiaoya, who was diligently cooking in the distance. Stroking the white hair on his head, he smiled and said, "Little girl, if you want to become a chef like your big brother Bufong, you have to practice your cooking skills and build a good foundation." Xiaoya's eyes were firm. Holding the kitchen knife, she skillfully cut the ingredients. Ever since she had seen Big Brother Bufong's cooking skills, Xiaoya only had one thought in her mind. That was to become a chef like Big Brother Bufong, to be able to cook delicacies that could make people happy. That was her life's goal. As the first Valley Master of the Valley of Gluttony, the old man's cooking skills were very strong. He said that his cooking skills weren't weaker than Big Brother Bufong's. That was why Xiaoya decided to learn cooking from him. The old man squinted his eyes, grabbing a spirit fruit and biting it. With a bite, a crunching sound rang out, and the juice in the spirit fruit splashed. The sweet and sour spirit fruit made the old man's face reveal a look of enjoyment. Suddenly, the old man seemed to feel something. His whole body was stunned, and the spirit fruit in his hand fell to the ground. With a thud, it rolled. Xiaoya stopped cooking and looked at the old man with a puzzled expression. "Little girl, I might not be able to teach you cooking anymore." The heavy responsibility of surpassing Bufong will be handed to you to learn by yourself. The old man sighed as he looked at Xiaoya, who had grown into a pretty girl after 3 years. Xiaoya was stunned. What did the old man mean? "I'm going to pursue the opportunity that I've been waiting for thousands of years." The old man's face was solemn. He raised his head 45 degrees, his eyes incomparably deep. Xiaoya was speechless. In the next moment, Xiaoya's eyes shrank. She saw the old man stand up, turning around, and dashing away. There was a transparent wall of the Gluttony God's building, which was made of crystal stones, and one could see the scenery outside. This wall was very sturdy. However, the old man still dashed forward, and with a clang, he created a big hole in the transparent wall. His body turned into a jet of light, shooting up into the sky. In a blink, he disappeared from the sky. In the Tao Tai restaurant, Lord Go yawned, and he couldn't help but lift his dog head. His eyelids were slightly drooping, and his face looked as if he hadn't woken up yet. 3 years have passed so quickly. Has the entrance to the Heaven Chief realm opened? Looks like it's time for me, Lord Go, to go to the Heaven Chief realm again. I wonder if those fellows will still welcome Lord Go. Several hundred miles away from the hidden Dragon Royal Court, on a pitch-black mountain, that mountain's aura became even more condensed, and black clouds constantly twirled in the sky. In the middle of the mountain, the strongest demon king, who was sitting cross-legged, suddenly opened his eyes. Lightning seemed to shoot out of his eyes, tearing the void in front of him. The mountain shook, as though it was about to collapse from the strongest demon king's aura. Boom! Rumble! The strongest demon king stood up, twisting his neck to loosen his muscles. Instantly, the entire mountain shook. Boom! In the next instant, an explosion rang out. The strongest demon king's figure dashed out of the mountain, turning into a jet of black energy. He stood proudly in the sky, and terrifying nether energy twirled around his body. Opening his mouth, the strongest demon king spurted out pitch-black energy. 3 years have passed. The opportunity that belongs to this lord has opened. This time, this lord will not let that damn human snatch the opportunity that belongs to this lord. Stop this lord. Kill. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.